This thing gets loaded. There we go. We are live. Hello, hello. Hello, everybody. We are, as you probably know, we are covering, or at least I'm going to try to cover the entire 2.5 hours of David Miscavige's birthday speech at in behest of L. Ron Hubbard. So we're starting with two guests. We should have Jeff and Karen on very soon as well. But we have Shannon, who's been one of the biggest advocates in protesting against Scientology in Chicago and really taking them to task. She's knowing the city ordinances, the letters of the law. So if there's a lawsuit, I'd imagine in Chicago with Scientology, Shannon was the first person to discover that information. And of course, we have Mitch Brisker, who I think your book just came out in a new edition. Which is pretty cool.
Came out. Yeah, it did. It's the same book. It just came out in the in the retail bookstore edition.
Yes, yeah. So that's exciting. And one of the really head filmmakers for Scientology knew L. Ron Hubbard, I believe, and then worked.
No. I didn't. I never knew L. Ron Hubbard. I worked closely with
Miscavige, obviously.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, I knew that. Yeah, worked heavily with David Miscavige. I thought you met him once or twice, but with L. Ron Hubbard, mistaken about that. But certainly has had a strong relationship with him, and is I think more recently out than some other people, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so, because I think Rachel Hastings, who I'm hoping can join us later.
That'd be great. Yeah.
She and I both left around during when lockdown started. We didn't know it. We left independently, and I didn't know she left because I'd gone back to Gold, and she was at Scientology Media Productions. And then it was actually Mike Rinder who said, "Do you know Rachel?" And I'm like, "Yeah, she's one of my best friends." And then he told me she was out, and then we got together.
Interesting. God, that's.
But yeah, we're kind of like the newbies. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, you're fine. That's the thing I've never thought about is what. So you were one of the people that were there that recently. How everything worked with the lockdown. You know, was all of a sudden were people more free? Were employees more free? Could they actually work from home?
No, yes and no. I mean, and I'm relying on firsthand stories from people I know. I saw the lockdown at Gold, and that was a whole different beast because Gold's a whole different beast.
Right.
The lockdown in the orgs, I mean, people did have. It depended where you were. Like, for example, Catherine Olson, who was a Sea Org member who was sent to the Ohio org, I think in Cleveland. She was sent there because they couldn't get enough staff, like public staff, contracted staff. So they sent her there. And then during lockdown, they had a lot of freedom. And that's when she escaped. So, but I also think even more importantly, the dynamic of the lockdown was that Scientologists began the demand to interact, which is very intense in Scientology. The demand for the public to interact with the organization is so intense that it's toxic. Right. It's literally traumatizing. And I think they weren't being demanded to come into the organization anymore. They weren't being demanded. So a lot of them started to say, wait a minute, this feels better. Yeah. I kind of like this. I'm just not going to go back in. And I think a lot of people left and nobody's talking about it.
Right. Sorry, guys, my dog just ran out. I'm going to try to get him. Hey.
Yeah, go ahead.
I've never heard that before, Mitch. That's great.
Well,
but it makes sense.
Yeah, I think a lot of people left. I'm surprised more didn't leave.
Yeah, but it was kind of
because they rely on calling people every day and saying, "Where are you? Get in here!" Constantly, and they're like, so now they're trying to sell them during lockdown. They're trying to sell them like extension courses. And just trying to keep their interaction because nobody really wants Scientology. You have to keep people gaslit. You have to keep them trauma bonded.
Yeah.
You have to keep them with push pull, like that kind of push pull. Dopamine generating, enhancing, constantly, or they're going to go away because there's no reason to stay.
Just like drug dealers. Exactly the same.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? You want to know what happened to drug dealers during lockdown? I mean, to Scientology during lockdown. Let's interview some drug dealers because I bet you it was
probably
the same thing.
Yeah.
Bitching and moaning about nobody to sell shit to.
Yep.
Only ones outside. Well, that's true because part of the success.
I don't know any drug dealers anymore, so I can't help you.
Part of the success of Scientology is looking somebody in the eye and like guilting them out. It's like kind of staring them down, you know. And so
yeah, there's actually but there's actually a whole technology, you know, nobody's really talked about it a lot, but the test center, which the TikTok crew shut down, there's a very, yes. So that place, people don't realize it. I know this because I helped set it up, and I made a film to instruct them on how to run these fake texts. I mean, you're probably thinking I'm a horrible person because I didn't know they were fake when I did it. I had to pull myself out of it and then look at it and go, that was just bullshit. But there's these very specific personality tests. They're really fake tests. And the whole purpose of the test is to gaslight the person. I mean, literally, they take this test and then they sit, like in the film that I made, they sit down with what's called a test evaluator. And the test evaluator, this is literally in the film, says to this old woman, well, Mrs. Brown, it says here that you're accident prone. Do you sometimes try to do too much, more than you can handle? And like they literally have these scripts.
How did you know that? Oh my God.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like,
it's like a psychic, Sylvia Brown or something. It's kind of the same thing.
And it's just a matter of numbers, because eventually you're going to hit somebody who's really vulnerable. And they're just going to reach for literally. So that went on in that test center. I mean, when Streets was saying don't go in, it's a cult. I mean, he was more right than he may have known.
Sure. In more ways than one. Yeah. Want to say hello to everybody real quick. Veda, I never know how to properly pronounce your name, so my apologies, but met you in Chicago. Thank you for saying hi. Wesley's here. Karen Wirastika is here. Thank you for saying hi. Kathy K. So we got a good cadre.
We got a good group of people.
30
I just started looking at the.
I can't see anything.
You can't see the chat?
No.
Oh, did you click on comments? I can see it.
I'm on my iPhone, so.
I don't know. Maybe you can't see it on your phone, Shannon.
Are you streaming to a channel, Shannon?
I'm streaming to my channel.
Yeah, you should be able to see it. Oh, well.
It's okay. I see plenty of chats. I looked at the chat all day at the org today. I'm good.
Yeah, you were streaming all day today?
Yes.
She hasn't stopped. How many days so far have you done it? Have you kind of audited that?
I have no idea. I
must be 40 altogether. 40, 45.
God, all together?
It's a lot. Do they know you? Do they ever talk with you when you're like out on the street?
They know who she is. I guarantee you. I know that. At the executive council meetings that they hold once a week, if not more often, they're talking about her by name.
Yes,
absolutely. Right. I mean, this is like, okay, so what's the latest with Shannon?
Right.
What are we going to do about Shannon? How are you guys handling Shannon?
Listen, I show up and the doors slam shut.
Oh, yeah.
And all the shades go down. And I'm like, damn it. I try so hard to catch it. But they actually look out the door and look down the block and see me coming and shut everything down.
Yeah. Well, because you're dangerous.
Yeah.
You have cooties. You have really evil shit going on.
That's right. I have all kinds of criminal intentions going on.
Yeah.
I'm suppressive.
Yeah. You hate mankind. You hate mankind.
I do. Yes. I hate myself.
Yes. Well, we all hate ourselves, but that's a whole different story.
Don't we all?
You're a merchant of chaos, Shannon.
I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're all suppressed people.
It's very nice Shannon, to meet you.
You too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Likewise. I'm a fan. By the way, Shannon, Michael, Andrea said your channel's not streaming.
It's not okay. That's okay. That's okay. Sorry, Michael.
Well,
I made a small effort.
See if you can though. You should, because I'd like to have your audience on with as well. But if it's
they probably would like it too, but I'm tired. I mean, I did what I could. I tried.
You did. A for effort. I'm just saying no, because all you would do is, because I was saying if I could like specifically stream to your YouTube, but I can't do that from my end. Anyway, so I don't know if you guys are interested, but if you want to start the speech from the top.
Let me try it one more. Do you want me to go try it again?
Well, yeah, try it one more time. Yeah.
Talk amongst yourselves.
Cool. Well, I was saying, yeah.
Let me. So bring me up
What's
to
up?
speed. I forgot how do we know how the video leaked? It's been a while since an event has leaked.
It has. So I want to wait a little while to get some people together.
Okay, great.
Yeah, how did it? Does anybody? Yeah, do you have any idea as to how it did get leaked? Ultimately, because it must have been somebody who was relatively loyal to the Scientology, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I mean, these things are like NSA lockdown. It's like insane.
Yeah, right. Right. That's what's impressive. Yeah, I'm surprised.
Yeah,
somebody was able to see their camera.
This wasn't like a sunglass camera pointed at the screen, was it? This is like a real video file,
right? Oh, yeah, no. This is only audio. This is only so no, they never.
Oh, okay.
Audio.
So yeah, so does it sound like it was recorded in the audience then? Somebody in the audience recorded it.
Sounds like that. Yeah.
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 Somebody's under the radar.
Yeah.
Right. Channing, were you able to figure it out?
I'm still working on it.
Okay. No worries.
I'm working on it as we speak.
Okay.
Can you close my window or no? Only I could do that?
I can. No, I could remove you if you want me to.
Remove me for a second, please.
Sure.
That was easy.
Yeah. Easy peasy. So that's interesting. So it had to be somebody.
It was somebody in the audience who's just pissed off and they turned their cell phone on. Maybe they were smart enough to have a little external mic or something so the sound wouldn't be so bad.
It's actually not that bad. I mean, you can certainly hear it. It's certainly
nice. Well, they were probably now that's interesting because that means okay, no, never mind. I was going to say that means they're sitting up close, but I can tell you Miscavige is such a freak about the sound quality. Like he uses a guy.
Right.
He uses a guy. He uses a guy. They have a staff mixer who works at Scientology Media Productions, who's a very qualified mixer. But for live audio mixing, he brings in an English kid. This kid goes to every event in the world, and he's the kid who does all the live events for the royal family, for the Queen, the King of England. So, because it has to be brag-worthy. No, it's got to be brag-worthy. It has to be good, and you have to be able to brag about it. That's Miscavige's whole thing. Because
so my curiosity is how come the Church of Scientology didn't post his speech in all its videos?
No, they would never post one of these speeches.
Interesting.
No. These things are so full of assailable statistics.
Yes, I can listen for 5 minutes.
You could just
we'll talk about
provably wrong. No, they don't. They're never going to post it. It's a reality distortion field.
Right.
It's like it would be like broadcasting a dream, it's being spun by a dream master. It's not even real. It's not. It's just it's a big hypnotic event that is intended to keep a bunch of people strung out on given money and given time. If they broadcast that thing, if you saw the visuals, it'd be the end of Scientology. I mean, listening to this guy that sounds like Miscavige sounds like a mafia punk. His accent and the way he talks, right?
Yeah, kind of accent, tough accent like this. Yeah.
Yeah, he's got that Philly accent. And he's trying to sound real smart.
Yeah, right. That's funny.
Yeah,
he gets that from his dad. It's this very like he must be Irish or something, but it's this Irish.
His dad. Yeah, no, they're Polish. They're Polish.
There you go. Polish. That would make sense. Miscavige, right?
Yeah, they're Polish. He and Tom Cruise, they're both Polish.
That's funny. Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that's an interesting connection.
Yeah, they were separated at birth. I'm telling you. Those two guys. Yeah, they're like the Bobbsey twins. Anyway, so crazy. Yeah, his dad, he's just tasteless. I mean, people don't realize how.
Right.
I mean, if David Miscavige is anything, he is lacking any kind of taste. I mean, any taste he has, he got from somebody else. Yeah, somebody gave him a book, or Tom Cruise said, "This is cool," or
motorcycle.
He himself, he's not really capable of anything like that.
No, not much at all. Which is why it's interesting to hear him. And we'll see. And you're right. And tell everybody about the badge that you have.
This is my. You can't really see this. Here, let me just hold.
I wonder if I can make you bigger. No,
I don't think you could. No, I can't refocus it.
No,
I should have scanned it.
I can see the outline.
Yeah, hold on a second. You know what I'm going to do here? anyway, this is my Scientology media. When I was, it says Mitch Brisker, senior director. I had to wear this. I didn't. I have a little name badge too, like a little thing, like in-flight hostesses, what in-flight people wear. It's just stupid. I never wore it. I was so embarrassed that I'm like,
was it like bronze or like brass plated and everything?
Yeah. It's a little brass thing that you put it on your lapel pocket, on your
right.
Not your lapel pocket, your patch pocket, whatever.
Right.
Yeah, and then you look like you work for an airline or in a hotel, right?
Well, I always wondered, like, could I sneak in if I just wore a vest with the gray lining?
Probably not. I mean,
black bottom, and just
those,
dress like that, they probably figure it out.
Those uniforms are pretty specific. Who designed? Yeah. Who designed them? We're talking about the Class 5 org ones with the vest and the color and the tie, and
it's very specific because it's two-tone because it has the gray lining.
Yeah, for whatever based on what that's based on whatever organization it is. They have their own little tribal insignia. His name was Richard. I can't think of his last name. He was the guy who designed the Delta Airlines costumes.
Fascinating. Wow, really?
Yeah, no, for real. Because I put on a whole
VIP.
I put on to roll this shit out. Okay, so that was in 2010 or something.
Right.
Okay, so since they rolled those out, Delta Airlines is 3 generations later on uniforms. Right. They're on the same uniforms from 2010.
That's funny.
They really look. Yeah, it's funny. It's like stuff like that. You change it. It's seasonal, but it's one of these stupid things that Scientology thinks that only has to do something once and it'll last forever.
Right. What's the point of the uniform? Was it to create legit, to make them seem like they're professional, I assume, and clean cut?
Because Miscavige doesn't have any taste, and he can't rely on other people to have taste. And he was sick and tired of walking into Class 5 organizations and seeing people wearing whatever the hell they wanted to wear. Some guy might have really nice taste. Somebody else might be wearing the same clothes they had in junior high school. So you don't know. So he's
that hideous sweater he wore during that song, "We Stand."
Hey, that was an Hermès sweater.
I heard it's awful. It's very 1980s.
Yeah, I wasn't there. I had nothing to do with that.
I don't blame you. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah,
and somebody asked before we get in. Somebody, Vaeda, sorry about butchering your name yet again. Asked Mitch what happened to Shelly. Vada?
Yeah.
Cool. Vada.
Right? Vada.
Sorry,
Vada.
what happened to what?
What happened to Shelly? Because you kind of predicted, or your theory about her is kind of the popular one now.
I know, but I got killed for saying it when I said it.
Right.
And now the people that were killing me are saying this is what happened, and I'm like, my head just blew up.
Yes.
Huh? I mean, it's just
hey, we have Karen.
Karen.
Hey.
Hello.
The real mama bear has shown up.
Oh, Mitch.
Amen.
How good to see you. You guys are on a roll. Hello, Shannon.
Yeah.
Good to meet you. Hi.
You too.
Hi. Yeah.
The one and only.
Huh?
Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Got a nice
to
bill.
be here.
Yeah. I was just asking Mitch. Somebody in the chat asked me to ask him what happened to Shelly, and I said he's sort of been vindicated on this whole situation.
Yeah. Well, because I ran into her in I think it was around 2008. That would make me the last person to see her publicly.
Wow, right?
Yeah, because I mean, there's been these supposed sightings, but I'm like, no, I talk to her. We had a chat. How you doing? What are you doing here? It was 2008, near where she's staying. But, if you understand the trajectory of a Sea Org member, especially a Sea Org member who joined the Sea Org at 12 years old, who was one of the original messengers, who was raised by L. Ron Hubbard, if you think about all that, this problem with being married to David Miscavige, that was just the one lifetime minor little detail. That just went in the bigger scheme of what your role is in eternity. So she got, like many Sea Org members, she got in trouble. She went through her handling her program. She got a job, and she has a kind of an important job out of the way, up hidden, because people have made her into a hashtag, so they want to keep her hidden away. But this woman is not chained to a bed in a mountain fortress being, fed slop. I mean, she's like living a pretty good life for a Sea Org member. That's what I'm pretty sure of. And
I feel a particular empathy somehow. I don't know.
I mean, look,
I wondered, like, would she have the same schedule as like a normal Sea Org member? You're
going pretty much. I think so. Yeah, I think so. She would. Maybe a little bit better. I mean, when I saw her, she was in Redlands, which is a straight shot down from Crestline, from where she's living, from the CST base. Redlands is nice. That's why I stopped there on my way to Gold. I'd always stop there to eat. The shopping is food. What's that? Did you lose us? But I figured she was probably there seeing a chiropractor or whatever. And then they were having like a obviously leisurely lunch, just hanging out, her and her three handlers, who, by the way, the three handlers she were with, they've been friends for years. We lost Dodge.
He'll be back.
So yeah, do I think she should have a choice in her own like path forward? Absolutely. But do I think she'd leave if she had the opportunity? I don't. That's my personal opinion.
What do you think, Karen?
Shannon, I have some tender feeling to Shelley because I knew her when she was this 11-year-old arriving at the Apollo. And this girl never, ever... I'm sure she doesn't even know civil rights and constitutional rights. She only was in the tunnel studying Hubbard.
Right, it's like, how brainwashed are you?
A teenager.
Yeah.
Right through.
Exactly.
And so she was in a very curtailed bubble.
Mm-hmm.
And she can't see the bigger picture. It's actually only when you step out that you see the bigger picture, because you're so, you're so
I guess
much
she's
in
treated
the
well
tunnel.
enough where
And
it's not like she's in slave-like conditions. So there's less of an incentive.
But I also know her negative side because I was the missionary sent to audit Flo Barnett, her mother. And there's all kinds of rumors and conspiracies and, just nonsense on the internet. Nonsense, even by well-known speakers. Because, first of all, I spent 2 full days with her, me and Ken Houghton, 2 full days with her as missionaries. We were trying to reel her back from this. There was a group called the David Mayo Advanced Stability Group, and
interesting. So he was the heir apparent apparently before Miscavige, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And I wonder, was there
opened his
right?
Well,
and
Miscavige felt embarrassed. It was an embarrassment that his mother-in-law, his wife's mother, was at the spin-off group and not the mother church. This was so. I was sent in. They really stuck. I was. Jeez, can you hear that?
I heard something.
What?
Is it a dog?
No, I just heard a phone. Okay, so
you're fine.
So I go to visit her, but they have done homework, and they found out that Flo, that I was her favorite. Whenever she came to the Flagland Base, she only wanted me to do her counseling. I was her L's auditor. I did L11 on her, blah, blah, blah. So they thought, it's a button. She loves Karen. Send Karen in. So that's why I was selected, right? This was the button.
Right.
But she, many things are not known about her. She had a very bad fall. And a few days, she had health problems. Her eldest daughter was there. And there was no conspiracy. And the people saying that David Miscavige ordered a hit on her to kill her and she died because of... That's nonsense.
Right. She's never going to go off the reservation anyway,
Right. And I talked to one of the detectives. Tony Ortega talked extensively to 2 detectives who went through her death with a fine-tooth comb, and there was no actual evidence of anything other than suicide.
Okay.
And considering how she was, there's 2 full days I spent with her shortly before this incident. She was not wanting to be present. She wanted to go absent. There's a deeper meaning on presence and absence when you think of knocking your body off, right?
Sure. Well, especially in, the context of Scientology, it's a different transition.
Yeah.
That's interesting. This is a silly question, but for those that knew Shelley, the last thing is she warranted to have all this sympathy towards her, or is her reputation that she was incredibly cold, talked down to everybody, was equally as rude as David Miscavige? Is there any truth to that reputation? And this sounds cynical, but are we sort of crying over spilled milk?
No. There's good and bad almost in anything.
Yeah.
Shelley had good and bad.
Except for David.
Right.
There was be a monster. They called him then a monster because there's not even a shred of redemption there. But we had what was called Sea Day back in the day, or a whole day off on August 15th, I think it is. And Sea Day is celebrated with yummy food and buffets, and it's a day off from work, and you're celebrating the Sea. So he was assistant at the time. He was president of the church, my former husband. And I went up and Shelley said, "Hey, Karen," and I was mingling with her.
Yeah.
And I said to her, I don't know if I am so sorry, because her death was now known. And I was offering condolences to Shelley.
Right.
Now, I'd known Shelley since she was 11 years old. She knew me well we all lived together on the ship with Howard. And Shelley, I got to say this because you got to look at the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Right.
Shelley said, "That bitch, I'm glad she did what she did."
Oh, no.
Hardcore.
She called her mother that bitch. And Shelley,
wow.
Oh my God, that's her mom. Then I thought, Scientology has a principle. It has some principles that are accurate, that you go into the identity of that which overwhelms you. Mm-hmm. In other words, if a bully beat you and screamed at you and swapped you around, you become, for the smaller kids, you become the bully that overwhelmed you. You copycat that.
Right, unless you act
and
not
I thought,
do that.
Oh my God, she's copycatting David Miscavige, because
the
way she barked at me to shut up, don't give me condolences for that stupid bitch, which was her mom.
That's awful.
I thought, wow, she's become David Miscavige.
It's kind of the way the kind of the way I saw it. I mean, I had a lot of interaction with Shelley, but it was really social because I wasn't on her sort of command line or whatever it was as a person that she would give orders to.
Cool socially, like she can make a joke and have normal conversations.
Absolutely, I had I had like. I would coordinate birthday presents and different kinds of social things with her. She was always really nice to me. And when I ever saw her with Dave, she was always kind of behind Dave in a kind of subservient level, taking notes and so forth, and justifying her position as his communicator. So, but I call it's mirroring. It's like Dave can be so, he can enforce himself upon people, even though he's very diminutive.
Right.
He has a lot of power. He uses his voice. He has a weaponized voice. I've never heard a voice like it. Like he has a voice like he could go in a china shop and just crack half the china with his voice, just screaming. His voice was painful. It was like having knives shoved in your ears. And so that in order to survive, people would mirror him. So I think what Karen's referring to, you see Tom Cruise doing it. Tom totally mirrors many aspects of Miscavige, and Miscavige mirrors Tom. Like he's dresses like him. He thinks of himself as a super celebrity, not as a religious leader.
Motorcycles.
Yeah, he flies around in his jet. it's a mirroring thing. It's like almost like a neurological thing in your brain, because people get impressed upon one another so much they start to mirror one another. It's really weird. It's
done for admiration. If
because you don't have anything.
Because he carries on like that.
Yeah,
then I'll be nearer the top dog because I am copycatting that conduct.
Exactly. No, you exactly described it. That's how you get enough power so that you can survive and be in that spot. Yeah, I mean, I heard this really, I brought up this whole thing about Lou. For me, you can't talk about Shelley without talking about Lou. Because
Lou is the androgynous supposed girlfriend.
She's not androgynous, and she's not supposed. Okay.
There you go. All right. Because the pictures if David Miscavige could have a lot of women, I find it fascinating. Out of all his options and all his money, he'd go for Lou. But I'd like to hear.
That's a security thing. I mean,
that's right. I'm sure, right.
Yeah, and it's also she's an equivalent bully. She's really one of the nastiest people I've ever met.
So Lou isn't this drinking violet, this silent type person. That was a perception I got of her, but I guess that's not.
She's pretty. Shelley would follow Dave around taking notes. She would always stand slightly behind him in a subservient role. Lou, on the other hand, always stands about 6 inches in front of him because she's gonna catch the fucking bullet. You get what I'm saying? And she's going to cross her arms and say, "You motherfuckers, you better,"
Wow.
So it's a whole different. The dynamic between those two was really different, and they were always together. I've told the story of flying on Tom's jet to England with them, and they disappeared into the bedroom. I didn't see him till the next morning. I don't know what the hell they're doing. I don't know what they're doing in there. She could be reading him bedtime stories, but it's such a bad look. What chairman of the board of what corporation flies private jet, spends the night with his assistant in a bedroom?
Would they ever tell you not to say anything, or would they just pretend that would they expect you
No, but they knew that I was going to say anything because I was so loyal and I'd made them so much money and I'd made them look so good. I must want to be loyal, and I didn't want to be loyal. Even when I was in, I didn't want to be loyal.
I'm curious with that, Mitch. It's like you hear of. I remember the shocking thing to me is when I got fired and Corinne Powell called me, and I figured Corinne Powell was making. It was pretty close, quite the honor. And she told me to take everything down. And this is when she didn't think I knew who she was, and I didn't know who she was at the time. But I thought she was, making $500,000 a year because she was spokesperson for this $1 billion organization. And I find out, she's making maybe twice as much as the other Sea Org members, which might be $70.
Yeah, maybe.
Might be nothing.
Right.
Not only that, she's reading from a script that somebody wrote a bunch of notes for her. They sent them to Miscavige. He rewrote them. Right. Now she's on the phone and she's reading those notes to you.
God, I didn't know that. Fascinating.
Yeah, of course not.
Miscavige, he heard of me and then relayed to Corinne exactly. Yeah. That's cool. It's quite the honor.
Yeah, Corinne, she's a flying monkey. I mean, it's
right.
At best, she's a flying monkey.
Wow. So let me jump in here now.
Please.
Sure.
David Miscavige truly likes to act as head of state. The security he hires, the Talon private security.
Yeah, they're like
agency.
Some of them are ex-special forces.
He likes to travel with bodyguards and so on. Now at Int Base, he would walk around with an entourage, again emulating that he's a great man and that people follow. And in his entourage would be his wife Shelley and Lou. And a couple of others, right? This is the entourage. Small little story. Take 1 minute. Mark Fisher, you got to get Mark Fisher on one of your shows.
Stop it.
Mark Fisher tells how David Miscavige was screaming at him. He was up a ladder. And as he came down the ladder, David Miscavige punched his nose, and noses can often bleed if you mishandle the nose. Blood was pouring out. Now, this is the story. Lou and his wife, Shelley, immediately put their hand in their fanny pack and took out cotton swabs and hydrogen peroxide. In other words, they were traveling in this entourage ready for
kit.
blood,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it was a first aid kit
Yeah.
ready to. Who walks around with hydrogen peroxide and cotton swabs and band-aids walking around? They knew that Miscavige will punch, and they better have the first aid to dab on and reduce the blood flow.
Yeah. Yeah.
What does that tell you, Dodge?
Right.
Well,
They're always
I
ready.
think it pretty much, always ready for a fight. Well, that actually, let me see, shortly after that happened, because I was up there when that happened, but I didn't know it happened. I didn't, because I didn't really understand what was going on with all the violence and everything. I just thought Miscavige was kind of a punk and wanted to pay me a lot of money. But shortly after that happened,
you did get paid a lot.
For a long time, I got paid really decently. I mean, not anywhere near as I much would have made if I stayed in the film business. But, well, no, but I was a professional. I mean, they hired lots of professionals,
right?
Like what's her name? What the muffins, whatever her name is, the lawyer. She, the one who's like acts as a spokesman now. She lives in a $12 million house on the beach in Jersey or someplace back east. She made way more much money than I ever made. I was probably the high.
Right.
I know when the IRS thing happened, I was the highest paid non-legal professional in Scientology. But the legal guys they got paid like major money.
But they weren't. They're not in the cult, are they?
No. But a lot of the other professionals who were hired weren't in the cult. The security guys aren't in the cult. The PIs aren't in the cult. I mean, I was in the cult, but that made me more controllable.
Right.
But they hired a lot of pros, and they paid them a lot of money. But I think I was probably the highest paid outside the attorneys. But whatever, I don't have that money anymore. I'm rebuilding my career. I'm not a rich guy. Whatever. People like to say all kinds of bullshit. Not long after the Mark Fisher story that Karen just told is when Tom Cruise started to come up to the int base, up to gold, right? Because I know this because he was living in a cottage next door to me. And at that point, we never saw Lou anymore. She was no longer part of the entourage because she was assigned to be Tom's helper, like whatever he needed. So they became very, very close. She took care of his housing and whatever stuff he needed. And I'm sure they became very close. And then eventually, Tom and Lou and Dave and whoever Tom happened to be with, they're like a foursome. We see them at the races when he's with Katie, and we see them whatever. Well, we don't see them anywhere now because, we see him in a blacked out helicopter.
Yeah.
Well,
anyway, are we, what's that?
Oh, Karen. Yeah. You want to chime in?
No, I just wanted to say that almost like a grotesque, macabre Shakespeare drama, Miscavige had the hots for Lou and sent her husband, Marcus Stuckenberg, to the RPF.
Yeah, I knew him. Uwe.
Wow.
Uwe Stuckenbach. It's worse than that.
He was sent to prison camp while Miscavige used Lou for whatever favors, whatever thing. And Marcus then got very, very ill. This is why
you mean Uwe Stuckenbach.
Uwe
Stuckenbach. Yeah, he had MS.
Marcus is the brother. Marcus is the brother who was in long-term communication with me. Okay, Uwe was in the RPF. And then he got MS.
Right.
Multiple
sclerosis. No, hold on, Karen, because I was there. He got MS, and when he got MS, Miscavige ordered him into the RPF with multiple sclerosis and ordered them divorced. And Uwe hung on for 10 years before he died. And I ran into him one day down in Pack because I knew the guy because he was the security chief at Gold who'd replaced Jackson Moorhead when Jackson left. And Uwe was a decent guy. He was a handsome young German man. I had him on the set. He was an actor for me a few times. I got along with him great. And when I saw him, he was a wreck. He was being pushed around in a helicopter. He was all shriveled up and shaking.
Oh my God.
He's in a prison camp. The leader of his religion, quote unquote, has ordered him to divorce his wife. And then he's taken up with him. This is why I bring Lou up. Thank you, Karen, because it's this big Shakespearean story. And everybody's like, where's Shelley? And I'm like, no, hashtag who the hell is Lou? Like, it's this whole big like, it doesn't hit, where Shelley doesn't even hit the tabloids. Usually, you need another woman, and you need a little bit of torture and maybe, some, and they got it all. I mean, this story is really creepy.
It is.
He died with.
He died in the
prison
hardcore.
camp,
Wow.
which is
Okay.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Shannon, you have less sleep. You're given sleep deprivation in the RPF. Here's a guy stricken with a really major illness, year in and year out, while his wife is stolen by David Miscavige.
Oh my God.
She dumps him. She lets him, even as
see you later, pal.
Multiple sclerosis, and he's there, and it really touched the heart even of other RPFers, because wasn't he wheelchair bound in the last?
Yeah, totally. When I saw him
even
not
walk.
long before he died, he had a handler who was pushing him around in a wheelchair. He couldn't even.
He was immobile.
He was 100%. He was completely immobile.
He couldn't.
He wasn't getting any kind of medical treatment, right?
He probably. I don't know. He maybe because he hung on for 10 years.
No, but MS, MS is a degenerative disease.
Yeah, you need
so
round the clock,
Right.
I don't know. I don't know. All I know is he had a wheelchair and a guy pushing him. That's all I know.
That's not medical treatment for MS.
No, that's not. No, it's not. He had
That's
no kind
horrific.
No, you need therapy. You need whatever. He probably could have lived a decent life, been more productive, whatever. It's just, this is the reason why I keep bringing Lou up, because it's like the Shelley thing is, to me, it's like, whatever. Yeah, she should have a say in her future, but it's not the story.
Right.
It's a little tiny sideshow of a much bigger story.
They say if you're going to be a leader, be a benevolent leader. Miscavige is ruthless.
Yeah.
What kind of heart of stone do you have when you stole someone's wife, you sentence someone to a gory prison camp, and you slowly let him die over a period of 10 years till he's immobilized and can't walk, but you are having a good time
sounds like
utilizing
Heber, too,
the wife.
with Heber.
Pardon?
Sounds like what he did with Heber, Jench, as well. Sounds similar.
Yeah.
So he does a lot of people.
But talking about a heart of stone, here's a leader who cannot feel the other person's pain it's just, his word is law. It is the law of the land.
He's a psychopath. Yeah.
Well put. And speaking of which, I might get into the speech.
Yes.
Let's do it.
Although I'm having a good time.
So Shannon, whatever you're doing, please do it more and do it faster.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because the world does not need this shit. I mean, when I left Scientology, I took an oath, like a literal oath to myself, to help contribute to a world in which less harm was created.
Yeah.
And that turned out to be a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. But I am really dedicated to that.
Yes.
Well, this is how you defeat them, right? This is
one way, but there's a lot of other harm in the world, not just Scientology.
Right. But there's, the big way of recruiting is simply by getting vulnerable people through foot traffic. And so
this has, I think this has made a world of difference in terms of informing the public.
Right.
A world of difference. I mean, maybe it's not, I don't think it's as helpful in terms of getting people to leave Scientology, especially to get Seaward members to leave. Not getting new people in. I think that's been choked off. I think that's just like a limb that's had a tourniquet put on it, and it's twisted tight, and it's going to rot and wither away and fall off. And, Miscavige doesn't care, because Miscavige, he sees himself, I swear to God, he sees himself like, what's the Mormon guy? Brigham Young. Like Brigham Young, like he illegally trafficked people from Europe. He drove them across the country. A bunch of them died. He tortured them. And just because he wanted to get Mormonism so dug in to a territory that it could never be dug out. And that's what Miscavige is trying to do in Clearwater. He's like playing the Mormon game. Anyway, that's just
they got a
one
whole
man's
state.
opinion.
They're still working on it. No, it's interesting though, but they got a whole state. He's still working on it. 30,000.
He just wants Clearwater.
What happened to, and speaking of Scientology, they bought City Hall, if I'm not mistaken. Bummer that Mark Bunker didn't get reelected. So I wonder, will they be, before we go on the speech, so much to talk about, will they go into, do they have more power now post-election?
I don't know.
Now do they feel like they have carte blanche?
I don't know. I mean, they are a little bit like, I mean, they are like that monster that keeps coming back. You know, maybe they're missing a limb. You know, maybe they're holding they're carrying their head, but they just keep lumbering along because they have money and they have the great reanimator, which is First Amendment protection. That'll reanimate. That'll keep some scary stuff alive once you have that. Yeah. And they have that. They have that. So the courts are like, sorry, hands are tied. You know, it's really they'll be here in 100 years. There'll be like 500 of them. There'll be a bunch of rich people that are treated really well and whatever, but they'll be around. I mean, you know,
might be more of a, you know, an exclusive cult or like an exclusive membership.
Yeah, it'll be this thing.
You know, their Sarah Lawrence cult was like a weird rich person's cult. So those things certainly
there you go.
Right. A lot less harmful comparatively speaking.
People need community.
Yes, a lot of people do. Right. And that's the scary part to it. And you wonder if they're diminished or do they get stronger? And was this a victory that turns, but that's only one city, obviously Clearwater. But you know, I'll say, Shannon, it's like the way you get new people, especially if there's all this guff on the internet, is to recruit people off the street who are either teenagers or late teens, early 20s, or immigrants, or people who almost feel like a stranger in a strange land. So there are people like you, or in LA, like Danny and Leah, or Chris, or whomever, who are really blocking everybody each and every day. How do they get new people anymore? I mean, again,
I don't think they do.
They don't.
Right.
I don't think they do.
There's nobody young there unless they're the children of cult members.
Right. I mean, Shannon's on the street. She's seeing it.
Right.
Yeah.
Like this is eyewitness.
Yes. Right. Yep. They, you know, I'm not personally, my goal is not to get people out of Scientology. I could care less if adults want to be in Scientology. I mean, most of the people I know don't have any connection with Scientology at all, Dodge. People like you and me, we could care less, right? Yeah. It's the trafficking part of it that bothers me. So I'm there just to carry a camera and expose what's going on, to show that dead-eyed look and that fake
you don't want other
smile.
people to get trafficked. Right. Yeah. And you don't want other people to get their passport confiscated.
Right.
You know, so you're actively stopping that from happening.
Yeah, I actually think that they're not keeping people's passports anymore. I kind of do.
They changed that. Huh.
What's that? Yeah, because they when these things come up and then they find out, oh, that's on the list of human trafficking, then they're like, don't take them anymore. They're sensitive to those kind of things. They're like, hey, you know, like pressure people who when they get pregnant, but don't use the A word and let them go.
I think they're like moles and whack-a-mole. It's like as soon as they find out they might be busted, they run down and hide. And then the next thing you know, they're peeking out the back door again. You know? And then that's exactly how they are one-on-one, and that's how they are institutionally.
Shannon,
well, they kind of don't. They kind of don't see they kind of don't see themselves as Earthlings. It's kind of like, you know, these crazy Earthlings don't think it's okay to pressure people into having abortions, so let's not do it anymore. These crazy Earthlings think it's not okay to take people's passports, so let's, you know, it's like. Okay, now I got to go.
That's the question, though. Does it become so benevolent where it's good in 20 years? Do they respect so many civil liberties where they pay this, where they're going to pay the Sea Org $1,000 a week, and it's 2 people in a motel, and all of a sudden maybe it's a good thing? I always wonder about that because they have to keep. You know, they eliminated the RPF. You know, they're not confiscating the passports.
Well, but hold on a second.
I'm not to do an Scientology, but kidding.
I want to know who's taking over after David Miscavige.
Oh, the IRS.
That would be nice.
We'll see if they decide to keep running it as a cult. I don't know. They don't have any plans in place.
I want to ask you. At least when I left, there was no plan. Yeah, I want to ask you one last thing that Lev had a question about. By the way, Lev wanted to give me a super chat. Unfortunately, I lost my monetization because I didn't get my PIN because I'm traveling. So you cannot give me a super chat, but thank you for asking. But you can go in the on my homepage and do a GoFundMe or support the GoFundMe if you like. So
you can
just an FYI.
Or I'll just send you my PayPal and you can give it to me and I'll give it to him. Except I won't.
Sure.
Next time I see him, right?
I don't know if I trust that, but maybe. But Lev wanted to ask a quick question. There's so much. I mean, this is kind of, the master was a little bit about this, but L. Ron Hubbard's connection with Aleister Crowley and Jack Parsons. I know L. Ron took Jack Parsons' girlfriend or wife. I know that. And I know they all shacked up together.
Yeah.
Dodge. Jeffrey is an expert in this area. Can you bring that up when Jeffrey's on? Because
sure. So when Jeffrey will
let's let Jeffrey talk
please
about it.
Ask Jeffrey. He really studied every nook and cranny.
Yeah, I don't know much about it. I mean, I knew a lot about Aleister Crowley because I had read about him. But
Shannon, can I just tell you something to validate how powerful these kind of demonstrations that you're doing are? I live a 1 mile walk from Big Blue, the Bay Complex. You can walk there 1 mile from my home.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm my bank, I constantly drive, and morning to night, there are 6 to 8 people luring people into the cult. They're there to get free tests,
right.
And they're in uniforms that look like airline stewards and
they
stewardess,
do,
black, you know, the black thing.
Yeah.
And you can see them instantly.
Yes.
And I'm stuck. It's a big traffic. It's Sunset and Vermont. Children's Hospital dominate the four corners because hospitals keep growing with more and more buildings, and Children's Hospital. I wonder if they're sometimes trying to grab desperate parents whose children are in Children's Hospital because that's the corner that they are luring people in.
I know.
Now,
I've thought about that too.
Yeah. Now, since you guys started demonstrating on the streets,
no difference.
There's no one on the streets luring them in.
That's great.
In Los Angeles, they're gone.
Yeah.
They're gone.
Yeah.
That's the bread and butter.
Right. So
that's
they're so terrified that the live streamers would go up to these people luring them in that they have gone with the wind.
They are terrified of cameras, legitimately, genuinely terrified.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I'm certain that they believe that there's some kind of very well organized machine behind this, and people are funding it. I'm sure Karen is on the list of people that are funding it.
Mike Rinder, I've heard Mike Rinder, Leah Remini, and Aaron Smith-Levin are
they're all
the
paying
top
for it.
Financiers, and they're paying all of us criminals to carry out the work.
Yeah. No comment.
What I've heard. I'm still waiting for that paycheck.
Yeah, I know. We're all waiting for Big Pharma to show up with our money.
But they're the ones paying police. You've seen these checks they give LAPD.
And you know what it is?
They're projecting what they do.
Yes.
They gave the mayor of East Grinstead £50,000 in a check. Alex Bonds Ross reported.
Check out his Paris coverage, by the way. Yeah.
So in order to save point, they're the ones bribing and corrupting local politicians and police.
Right.
But then they say, they're projecting their own bribery and corruption on others.
Yeah.
Right. It's who could he pass it off to?
Okay, let's start, Dodge.
Let's do it. All right. We had a lot of fun. I'm trying to figure out where the beginning might be.
How about right around 120?
120? Yeah. I think you're probably right about that.
I'm kidding.
No, I think it's probably. There we go. All right. It is around 120.
Can I describe that speech in one word? Just one word.
Sure.
Miscavige is puffing. It's
Puffing,
a lot
I
of
like that.
puff and puff.
Yes.
Puffing.
Yeah.
I say masturbating.
Entirely possible.
I kind of highly doubt that. I mean, I think that I'm not going to say it, but I think he's small across many dimensions. That's all I'm going to say.
Yes. More ways than one. All right, I think we got to where the speech is. All right, so this is, here we go. You hear it?
No.
No.
But that's cool. Even if we can't get it, I think we've been very highly
well,
entertaining.
I think yeah, there might be a
in your opinion, right?
Hey, my opinion is
there might
worth
be
something.
a louder version too, or one thing I could also I might need to play it to the other side. I mean, I might need to show the screen, and I think you'd probably be able to hear it better, is my guess.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see how that works. And Alex also has it. So thank you, Alex, way, which he wanted to be on, but he's in Paris.
Nice.
Yeah. Boo-hoo.
All right, this is the music. Can you hear it?
I was in Chicago all day, and he's in Paris.
Yeah. Shannon, you're doing it all wrong.
I am.
Yeah. Okay. So there's some music. I have a lot of music. Here's the applause. Can you hear that? Can you at least hear the applause?
I hear nothing.
Nothing?
Nothing.
No, nothing.
All right, and I'm gonna try.
Okay, hey, while you guys are sorting this out, I gotta go handle something with my dog. Okay.
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 So
see you in a minute.
Fine. So none of you are able to hear it, I assume.
No.
Okay. Then I'm gonna do one thing. Sorry, guys. To StreamYard. Thank you for your patience, and share your computer screen right here, which they have. Screen sharing. I'm surprised you can't just hear the preset share screen. I'm surprised you can't just hear the audio though. That's weird. But share screen and see if let's see if this works.
I can hear.
Cool. We can all kind of hear it now.
Go to 3 minutes, 3.25.
Yeah, this is loud too. So were you guys able to hear it okay?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can hear it.
Great. Okay. Now it's just, God, talk about an interesting thing. I think, was this all applause at the beginning?
Yes.
Wow. How long? All right, that's a weird thing. How long do they have to keep this applause around for?
A long time.
Puffing. Puffing.
Right, puffing. You're completely right about it.
Do you remember when you were here in Chicago and the guy got thrown off the job and told us that he always uses an applause machine?
Yes, right. You did say that. That's funny.
Yeah.
So this is probably a machine.
Yeah.
Interesting. And it goes fascinatingly, it goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
Important training program in Los Angeles. Well, thank you very much. And yes, it's great to be back in town. Because after all, Earth has finally realigned to its proper axis, all thanks to the lever we have been applying to the planet these past 4 months. That's it. IES anniversary at St. Hill in England, check. New Year's event at the Shrine Auditorium in Los Angeles, check. And now, for the first time since the unnamed began, LRH's birthday event at the Ruth Eckerd Hall in Clearwater, Florida, yes, check.
As if that was his plan all along, right? They ended up in Clearwater by default.
All right, I'll put it down. You talk. I can look something more. God, and more
Actually,
applause.
it's been both a marathon and a whirlwind. A marathon as regards these past few years and the most important training program in our history. A whirlwind as regards the sprint to the finish line these past few weeks and the unequivocal launch of an unprecedented future. So, if ever there was a moment that captures the spirit of what just transpired, well, this is it. An LRH birthday celebration wherein we present what he most wished for, that perennial gift of expansion. And never was it more appropriate than now and tonight, in the wake of a year when that word expansion has now become synonymous with eternity, and where the wellspring of eternity
It's all about the
itself
expansion.
is
So I'll probably
sourced.
give some numbers, I think.
So, albeit been said before, let it be said once more. If beings can be anywhere, then LRH is everywhere, and all you have to do is look at what's immortal. All naturally begins with continuing acclaim as an author of timeless scope, wherefore comes another touch of LRH magic for all to follow in his footsteps. Witness his Writers of the Future legacy now celebrating its 40th year, and which yet again just hit
Like,
number
what is he even
one
talking? Like, you know what he's
nationwide.
talking about? What that means, Karen? Like, what are Writers of the Future?
This is a competition that
Well, for every
he
other
has a separate organization called Author Services.
Okay.
And they peddle Hubbard's nonfiction. I mean, not his Scientology, religious stuff, his fiction.
His fiction,
His
yeah.
fiction, not nonfiction, fiction.
Right.
Battlefield Earth, Mission Earth, all the pulp magazines.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah.
So that's
And
part of all that.
every
Right.
year they have a competition. Who's going to be the new breakthrough Top Gun science fiction writer going forward in time? They have these competitions, and science fiction writers submit their essays and so on, and they have a little committee, and they choose the winner, and the winner gets a nice check. All PR, fluff and froth.
Interesting.
Fluff and froth. While people are in prison, while people are tortured, the other 1 mile down the road, while people are in subterranean tunnels getting sleep deprivation and working, ha ha ha, look, we're giving money to a sci-fi writer. It's
Right.
fluff and froth and baloney. But I got to tell you, I could, if I didn't like Dodge so much, I couldn't even stomach listening to this.
No, it's
I
terrible.
felt a vomit.
It's awful.
I felt Dodgers forcing me to listen
Yeah.
to this crap.
It's
I am
awful.
being tortured to listen to baloney minute
Yeah.
after minute. Dodge, you're punishing me.
I know,
Stop.
but we need you to call it out. You're the, you know, you and Mitch have the
Well,
expertise.
it was torture to listen to it. It was because it's a tissue of lies.
Yes,
Mitch,
of course.
can you Mitch, can you just put your book up there so that on the screen?
Yeah,
Can
please.
you just put your book up? Mitch was a sort of a right-hand man regarding films, and he exposes the lies, what we call in England codswallop. Codswallop means nonsense, baloney, just hype, rubbish. So the speech continues to be more and more outrageous.
It
I
does.
don't know how I didn't vomit.
It's
If I
awful.
didn't like Dodge so much, I would have just switched. And I was feeling, do I have to listen to this?
So was I.
Huh? You were like that? You were feeling...
Yes.
Dodge?
I was like, I cannot listen to this.
Yes,
There's-
yes.
There's
What?
a point when they talk about Chicago when he takes credit for the weather. He actually takes credit for the weather in Chicago when they were here. I mean, it's
So, and
everything
sorry,
under
continue,
the
Shannon.
sun. He takes credit for everything under the sun.
He took credit for the Berlin Wall coming down and claimed that
yes.
it was his Knots OT7 solo auditors who telepathically, because they were on this level of BT cluster
Oh my God.
thing, the Berlin Wall came down. So you're right,
Fair.
Shannon. There is nothing he won't take credit
Right.
over.
I really hope people are paying attention to what you're saying, Karen and Mitch, because a lot of this stuff I've never heard before.
Right.
And,
Interesting.
and it fits with exactly with what I see on the ground. And each of them in lockstep are almost identical characters. Wow. I mean, they love their fantasy, don't they? Love it.
Don't they ever?
An airline, a new car? No, that was our message just last month on Super Bowl 2024, the biggest telecast in U.S. history. What's more, when all ads for the big game were stacked against each other, who stole the show as most viewed? An airline, a new car? No, it was Scientology.
Any truth to that? Was it the most popular Super Bowl commercial?
Absolutely. First of all,
the
commercial didn't even air at the Super Bowl. They chose markets.
Right, locals, like local TV. Right.
Yes, local TV. It couldn't possibly have been the most popular because it was only in a few designed marketplace. It wasn't in the general Super Bowl with, things like Pepsi Cola.
Right.
And the mate.
He sounds exactly like a used car salesman. Precisely.
Right. I need to actually hear him speak for a little bit.
Sorry, I was muted. You guys saw the Jesus ad? With people washing each other's. Did you see that ad? It was paid for by the guy that owns Hobby Lobby. Oh, you have to go and Google Jesus. He gets us. This, the guy who owns Hobby Lobby, they kick Jews out of their store. They are the horror.
Yeah,
they were contraceptives and blah blah blah.
Yes.
They did an ad that was better than any Super Bowl ad that I ever worked on for the church or for the cult, and any Super Bowl ad that the cult has ever done. These guys nailed it. And they're just as bad as Scientology. And that ad was.
They knew what they were doing a little more. Yeah.
He's just lying. I mean, the degree that he's lying.
Yes.
People in there, their brains are being flooded with dopamine, and they're like, "Oh my God, I am in the right place at the right time. Oh my God, take my money, take my time, take my children." It's really disgusting.
I don't get. I just don't get that.
Right. I guess you're that. Right. I guess you wouldn't watch this live stream or care to Google any of it. I guess because these are such blatantly outrageous claims,
right?
It's not.
Oh yeah, and plus the reason they can't show this is because these things are provable,
right?
Nobody at that event is going to go home and Google #1 most important Super Bowl ad because they're going to end up in ethics, and it's going to cost them tens of thousands of dollars for a set check.
Right.
Yeah, it's called fact checking, and everyone knows how to do it now. This is why they cannot get new members. This is why.
Right.
Well, so one of the primary reasons.
Yeah.
Dodge a little further along. This is a classic that they do in a lot of these international events. They name some obscure African chief of Wagga Wagga. Nobody can contact, nobody can prove.
I know.
And in this one, they're saying, they gave him the skin and fur of a rare leopard, which is only given to royal. But this came from some obscure African chieftain, not even named.
Right.
And everyone gasped. Oh my God! He got a
leopard skin.
Leopard skin. Listen, we're going to have a changing of the guard. I'm going to have Jeffrey here.
Okay.
He has some great things to contribute.
Karen,
thank you so much.
You're amazing.
Thank you.
Bye, Karen.
Hey, Karen. Bye, Karen.
I want to give a special shout out to Karen for taking me in, and we had many fine meals together, and we'll have in the future because I'm coming back to LA to cover all the trial stuff. So just want to thank them for their, they were one of the early people to reach out to me after this all happened. Made me confirm that I was actually a good journalist. So much love to you.
Yeah. And Mitch, I want to see you very soon, sweetheart.
Yeah, I'll see you soon,
Mitch
Karen.
and I are neighbors. Love you,
Yeah.
Mitch.
Well, let's catch up.
And
Okay,
Osa,
Jeffrey
if
will
you're
be right
watching
here.
the hate site that I helped put together on Karen, it's complete BS. Thank you very much. Your data is
know,
all
he
wrong.
was
She's
so
a wonderful,
gracious.
caring person.
He was so gracious. He came out and he called me and he said, I want to apologize. I
Respect.
had something to do with those hate sites they built because anyone who speaks out get these outrageous hate sites.
Yeah.
Right.
We were drug runners, we were
Yes.
prostitutes, murderers,
Yes.
killers,
Yes.
pedophiles,
Yeah.
molesters,
The
child
day,
traffickers.
the day before you left, you were perfect.
Yeah, exactly. That is the point.
In the 40 years they used me.
Yeah.
They never knew.
Apparently
any of that.
they don't have like a. Apparently they have really good gaydar. Like they can tell who's gay,
Okay.
but they can't tell who's like evil.
Right.
Until
they leave.
Good point. Good point. Okay,
Right.
Jeffrey will be right here. Love to all of
Cool.
you. Bye-bye.
Love you
Bye.
guys.
Oh,
Love you.
hey, Dodge! You can put
What
this
up?
picture up. I made a picture. You can see
Yes,
my
I
badge
saw
now. Yeah, you can. There it
yes.
is. Okay, there you go. Okay,
That's
so
pretty. That's pretty cool.
Those are real credentials, people.
Wow,
So,
look at that fancy logo
yeah.
on there.
Yeah, don't
It's
hate
a
me.
logo.
Please, I'm just trying to make up for it. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, at least I apologize. Lenny Riefenstahl never did. She said, "What do I have to apologize for?"
Who said
Interesting.
that?
So there are some that are out.
Lenny
that-
Riefenstahl, the Nazi propagandist who made
Oh.
Triumph of the Will, who worked for Hitler.
Funny.
and
Right. Okay.
Goebbels.
Right, right.
Sure.
Oh, the film.
Famous.
Yes.
Right. There's a lot of comparisons. Somebody said there's a Scientology version of Goebbels. Well, of course, because he was the propaganda guy. So
Well, no, they're nothing like Nazis. I mean, they don't kill Jews. But other than
No.
that, they have a lot in common.
Right.
Making the
Right.
able more able.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, you can take that down now. I'm sick of looking at it. Thank you very much.
And I will. I will. We'll listen to a little more just to check out the scene.
A line which has
Yeah,
now arrived.
if anybody's watching this,
Beyond that-
I don't know if you're not watching this on my channel, open up a tab and watch it on my channel. I'm trying to resuscitate it.
Yeah, if you can probably watch from Mitch's, you could hear it from mine. I'm just having it play. We're like 16 minutes in, and then we'll comment, once we're all. So obviously we won't pause each time we talk.
Well, I mean, so far, reaction videos. So far, my reaction is like I've thrown up in my mouth twice. So.
Yeah, I don't blame you. It's part of the fun of it. So yeah, we're at
Locations of the flagship Apollo. Executives had come from orgs far and wide. After a 2-day sail, the ship docked at daybreak off the northwest coast of Africa in Funchal, Madeira. Students are once again assembled around the desk in his research room, whereupon it begins the technology of the establishment officer. And so, I give you LRH from a confidential lecture, Form of the Org.
Hey, Jeff.
Establishment officer, for those of you who don't know, that's a synonym in Scientology for bully.
I've never heard
That's
of it.
all that is.
Is that what that's interesting? Okay.
Yeah, it's just a kind of bully. Establishment officer is like, it's like you have an executive usually at the top of a division, and then they need somebody to get all their crazy stuff done. That's like an establishment officer, but it's mainly bullying people into compliance.
Right. Interesting. I just want to. Jeff has joined us. Jeff, how are you? Jeffrey Augustine.
Hey,
Good.
Jeff,
How you doing? Hi, Shannon. Hi, Mitch.
Hi.
Hey,
Hello.
Jeffrey.
Hi, Shannon.
Thanks for signing on. Karen is great too, so I appreciate both of you guys making the time.
Yeah. Yeah. We didn't want to miss the LRH Bday event. Oh, I'm sorry, birthday. I misread that. Oh,
Bday, I
Mary
like
Sue. Mary Sue, the bidet is not working. Get someone from the States up here. Well, I'm sure Ron had a bidet, so.
Yeah.
I always wondered how opulent, I wonder if Miscavige has one, how opulent his place is.
Of course he would. He's a guy like that. He probably has one.
Oh
of
yeah,
those.
for sure. Well, if somebody told him that it's a tasteful thing to have one, then he would have one.
Right.
He
True.
wouldn't figure it out on his own.
Yeah. Hey, I got a question. Just technically, Dodge, we have this we're all to one side, and then we have this birthday event logo, or is that like?
Oh,
like I'm looking on screen. It's like we should be on screen.
Right. So we could all be on screen without
yeah, that's much better. Now we got the talent on air.
But we can't hear it. We're having trouble hearing it.
Yeah.
So there lies the problem. So when I want to go back, so what I'll do when I want to go back to all of us to listen to, then that
then then that answers it. You could do whatever you want. You can go do it back the other way.
I'll go back and forth though, because I think you're right. And we riff for an additional 10 minutes after we hear Miscavige. Thank God only speak for 40 seconds. So the majority of it will be.
I got it. Okay. I just wasn't. Yeah. Okay.
So I'm letting the speech run, and then when we're done talking, do a little more, and then usually within 1 minute, there's something I want to ask you guys about.
Okay.
That's kind of how. So we're at 19 now. So as I said, we'll get through the full thing. Luckily, I don't have to listen to the full thing.
Yeah, please.
But, I'm not.
But
I don't have until 3 a.m, and I can't stand up and applaud.
Yeah, right. And no need to stay on for the entire time.
Okay, now I got it. Okay, now I understand the concept. Okay, so
yeah. So then, if you want, we'll play something random. See what's up.
This time.
So the public traffic.
Oh, it's a little bit of.
Is actually confused. Just in themselves, if you have a confused staff, like the staff goes, the little whirlpools and flows on down the airport, off the airport.
I understand them.
So it's one thing to have that org board up on the wall, and another thing to get it down on the concrete floor.
Okay, that's actually what is the deal? Is the whole basis of Scientology stupid metaphors? It seems like L. Ron Hubbard's always like, if you're behind the wheel and you're falling asleep, you're gonna crash. It's like, well, I'm not a car. So how's that applicable?
Yeah, so
keep money.
Yeah, I think that but they're not really good metaphors. I mean, they're sort of poor man's. They're kind of poor man's literacy. They're not. I mean, even Dan Sherman, the late great Dan Sherman, who invented the Miscavige speech style, he even confided in me. He said, I write those speeches to make Miscavige look smarter. So we all know that the guy's not really very bright. And so, but the one thing I can tell you, I was very thankful because I had to make a lot of these once we finished the core films for Scientology for training, so that Scientology, all the plans and programs could move forward. Then we were starting to make films out of all kinds of random stuff, like essays that Hubbard wrote and little speeches like that. And he'd use a ton of these metaphors, which has helped me because if it says, if you're behind the wheel and you're falling asleep, I'm great. I can shoot a guy behind the wheel falling asleep. So they tend to give you things to shoot, and so that was very helpful. I mean, the Dianetics book is full of that stuff, and if it's not, then you have to think of it. You have to come up with these visual metaphors, because a lot of the metaphors that he uses, fortunately, can be visualized, but a lot of them are really stupid.
They're so stupid.
Stupid. That's a drinking game. Every time Hubbard says something stupid, we all take a drink. That's stupid. That was stupid.
That was there from the beginning, right? That was there since 1951, I suppose.
I think he started it when he was writing pulps, when he was writing dime novels, for a penny a word or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, I think that he got very skilled. There's some conjecture. I think Jeffrey knows about this. There's some conjecture that he had some severe neurological disorder or some kind of epilepsy that drove him into these hypermanic states where he would write. This guy could write so fast that he'd have to put a roll of paper in the typewriter.
Methamphetamine.
Yeah, no, I don't think it was just speed.
I always wondered that.
Yeah, I don't think it was just speed. I think because, as we know today, speed actually calms down some neurological disorders.
Mm-hmm.
Like people with ADHD who are different brain than some of us, I don't know. And they have great gifts of being able to envision and imagine. I mean, they really so many gifted people in the neurodiverse world.
Yeah.
And so it could be that his amphetamine use was kind of being a bit like that in terms of allowing him to really focus. But it's kind of scary the way he would do that. The stuff is shit. I mean, I hated his writing. I really didn't like his writing. And people, like when I was at Gold, like when Mission Earth came out, everybody's reading Mission Earth. I read the first book and I said, this is trash. I've been reading good science fiction since I was 14 years old.
Yes. I
read the Foundations trilogy when I was 14 for crying out loud.
Yeah.
And even later, guys like, I read all of this. Yeah, all those classic books and his stuff. He's like writing like for like the lowest common denominator.
Yes.
He's such a poor writer.
Ursula Le Guin. I mean, those are good writers. He's shit.
Yeah. And I wasn't even a science fiction fan, but because I was a huge reader when I was younger, I read a ton of stuff. I read, Stranger in a Strange Land, and all those great classic books. And then you read Hubbard. Yeah, Flatland. My father, who was an architect, turned me onto that book because it's about mathematics. So it's like, and then you read Hubbard stuff and you're like, oh, okay.
I was reading a comic book. Yeah.
I was going to read long portions, Dodge, from the Phoenix Lectures.
Oh my God.
I thought we could spend the whole evening, the next 5 hours on the Phoenix Lecture. Look at that gold packaging. Look at that.
By the way, that has I can tell you that has a, what do you call it? It has a special UV coating so it won't fade from sunlight. I mean,
right. These have to be preserved for a century.
If I can just jump in, something that's really funny that I share on some of my live streams. Yeah. One of the funniest books is all about radiation.
Oh my God, you have a copy. You're so lucky.
No, I have the original too. But it says L. Ron Hubbard with Dr. Gene Denk and Dr. Farley R. Spink. All about, so Dr. Farley Spink, whoever he is, all about radiation. So I guess L. Ron Hubbard said that that smoking cigarettes will run the stored radiation out of your body.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And he said not smoking enough causes lung cancer.
It does.
And his personal doctor.
That's true, Dad.
I'm good.
His personal doctor, Gene Denk, did die of lung cancer, and he was a heavy smoker. I mean, I saw this guy a few times as a doctor, and Gene, he was always covered with ashes and had yellow stains on his fingers, and his teeth were yellow, and but that was Hubbard's doctor. So he
nice.
Yeah.
Jeff, if I may, I want to ask a quick question, Jeff, about
yes, sir.
Lev was asking about the relationship with Jack Parsons and Aleister Crowley.
Right.
I know that Hubbard stole his wife or girlfriend, if I'm not mistaken, but that stuff goes deep, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, here's the quick layout. Okay. Hubbard writes that he left, he was discharged from the Navy, that he was crippled and blinded at the end of World War II.
Right.
And that his family was going to abandon him as crippled and blinded. Mm-hmm. So he got out of Oak Knoll Naval Hospital, where he malingered for a year and read psychiatric books. And because he admits he impersonated a doctor to read the psychiatric text. He was so crippled and blinded that instead of heading north to his wife and 2 kids, he headed south to Jack Parsons' place, where he banged everything in sight. He was a skirt chaser. And probably
this is late 40s, right? Right before Dianetics.
He was it was the late 40s. Yeah. It was 19. So instead of he was so crippled and blinded that he went down to Pasadena to a free love community. That's what the FBI called it. So he's sexually involved.
But I'm sorry, I would have done the same thing, Jeffrey.
Yeah. Well, you know your inner Hubbard then.
Yeah,
so so he got hooked up with Jack Parsons, who was a disciple of Crowley. It's pronounced Crowley, right. Aleister Crowley.
But I didn't know that. Okay, good to know.
And Thelema, and they decided that they were going to do this evocation, the Babylon working, to get a moonchild to.
Cool.
Yeah, so they needed a Scarlet Woman, and what was interesting is that Crowley was old and sick and was dependent upon Jack for donations. And then, he obviously saw that Hubbard was out taking Jack Parsons for everything. Jack thought he was unusually gifted. And so Aleister Crowley wrote to Carl Germer, the head of the Order Templi Orientis here, OTO, Thelema in America, saying of Ron Hubbard and Jack Parsons, he said, I grow fairly frantic when I contemplate the idiocy of these louts. So Hubbard never met Aleister Crowley.
Right.
But he acted like he was the best friend of
yeah, I mean, he claimed. I think he referred to him in a lecture, Jeffrey, if I'm not mistaken.
He does. He
referred to him as my friend.
My good friend, Aleister Crowley. No, he never met him, and Crowley despised Hubbard for destroying Parsons. So a lot of that was manufactured. Oh, it's Karen in the back. I thought, oh, that's just my admin.
I like it.
That's my admin.
Is that your Lou?
Yeah. There's my lovely wife.
She was awesome. Thanks again, Karen. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm in my research room. So anyway, Hubbard was very much involved in the occult. I made the argument on my blog that the occult involves parts of the occult, like the Goetia, involves the summoning and banishing of elemental spirits. And that sort of prefaces the later OT levels where you summon and banish elemental spirits.
Right.
So you can see that one parallel. And then philosophy says it is interesting that Hubbard and Crowley both ended up the same, delusional, mentally insane, and possessed by demons. Yes, but L. Ron Hubbard knew how to monetize it and die with a net worth of a report of $400 million. Right. Crowley died bankrupt. So marketing was the difference between Crowley and Hubbard. Hubbard had a marketing genius, and he had timing going for him. And he also had people like Mitch Brisker, promoting his stuff. Crowley never had a Mitch Brisker.
Yeah. No. I read Crowley. I have one Crowley book. I still have it. It's called Diary of a Drug Fiend. It's a very well-known book. No, it is. And
I know it.
Crowley he was an opium addict, and because I had, my own whatever
history.
History. Thank you. I was looking for another word. My own sort of pathway through the heroin-filled hills of Laurel Canyon. I came across this book. I'd never heard of Scientology. I was probably 17 years old, and I read Diary of a Drug Fiend.
Yeah. Well, Crowley's story is that he was, I believe, 1906 in Cairo, Egypt, and he came into contact with this a higher level being called Aiwass, Aiwass, and he channeled the Book of the Law through Aiwass.
Wow.
And it was automatic writing. Hubbard, according to L. Ron Hubbard Jr., would go into these manic writing stages. He would get himself drugged up, and he could write. He actually took butcher paper, put it into his typewriter so he didn't have to change pages one at a time, and he would just write and write and write. He could write on. You go on a bender for 24 hours and write. So was that automatic writing? He would never admit to that, but in his affirmations, he seems to allude to automatic writing. So I know we're going off topic of David Miscavige at the birthday party.
No, but I think that's a really interesting. Whoa, what is that? That's a really interesting connection. This idea of automatic writing, because we were framing it differently. We were framing it. Shannon had mentioned speed, which rightly so. And then I was mentioning he may have been differently brained, and the speed may have helped him to focus. And now you're mentioning automatic writing, so it's really fascinating.
It could be all of the above. It doesn't have to be an either or. I mean, if you are if you're having psychological problems, and I think it's called logorrhea, the addiction where you have to be habitually writing, and you're using drugs, and you're running a cult. Right. And look, one thing, Hubbard gave himself away, Mitch, in the Simon Bolivar policy, where he says of the Scientologists always crave novelty. And Hubbard gave himself away when he said, you always have to be giving them a new game or show, because if you don't, the game becomes getting you.
Right.
And so if he didn't, first he made money by issuing new tech. Okay. So he was issuing all this tech. And I talked to someone who went back to like the 50s and 60s. He's no longer with us, but he said a lot of that stuff we would pilot and it was crap tech, they called it. Mitch, like that. They would tell Ron it was crap tech, and he always had to be issuing new tech. In other words, he had to be expanding his product line offering.
Right.
And so there was a monetary necessity because I talked to Guy White, who was married to Suzette Hubbard. And Guy used to talk to Mary Sue Hubbard all the time. It was Guy's mother-in-law. And Mary Sue said, well, whenever we needed money, Ron would write something. I mean, that's what Mary Sue Hubbard told Guy White, her son-in-law.
Pulp Fiction writer, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember a writer once telling me, in the 80s, I knew a guy who wrote professionally for magazines, and he said, my wife wants new carpeting, so I'm going to have to crank out some articles.
Right.
And then astonishing that Mary Sue would tell Guy White, Ron did the Phoenix lectures because, we needed the money. So there's all kinds of things. It's more complex than just this crazed genius on speed. He actually is running a.
No one said genius. I didn't hear genius.
I think he had a certain genius to him, and I'm not saying it in a good way. But I'll take your point, Shannon. Maybe he was just, I'm not the final authority on anything.
Was he, it's a silly question, but was he, in some sense, a countercultural pioneer for leading people into secularism in the early 50s? I mean, he might have just taken.
That's a very good point because
excellent, good question.
When I was 23 years old and I was very vulnerable and was in the midst of all kinds of chaos. And I ended up a celebrity setter in 1973. It very much seemed like counterculture.
Yeah.
And I mean, the reason why, David, that Hubbard never went to prison and David Miscavige will probably never go to prison. And Keith Raniere is spending 120 years in prison is because Keith Raniere is lazy. He wasn't willing to do the work.
Right.
And Hubbard did the work. And Miscavige is trying to follow in his footsteps in terms of doing the work to keep the whole thing going. So you see how I just framed my cult as being better than somebody else's cult?
Yeah.
Because my cult leader did the work and your cult leader went to prison.
Well, Raniere, Nexium and Raniere, Raniere's a big mistake was not incorporating Nexium as
he didn't do the work.
Religion. No, he didn't. He didn't make it a religion. If it had been a religious body, it was a secular. Yes, and so he didn't have that layer of defense, but he also did. What's interesting? Was he a pioneer in counterculture? I think he was in some ways.
Yeah,
but it
not a religious.
Well, he pulled in William Burroughs, who was certainly at the avant-garde.
Yeah, right. He connects with all those guys, right? Parsons and Burroughs, and
Well, you have Charles Manson, who did some jailhouse Dianetic auditing.
I didn't know that. Hilarious. I did not know.
Charles Manson was identified with Scientology, and when the murders happened and Manson was arrested, the first thing they did was to get Charles Manson's folders and round them up and destroy them and try to, purge him, make him a non-person in Scientology. Wow. So you had a lot of people going through Scientology out of curiosity. There was a high dropout rate, certainly.
Yeah.
And, for me, Mitch is a little bit older than me. What are you, Mitch, 94, 95?
106.
Okay, so Mitch is a little bit older than me.
Yeah.
So, when I graduated high school in 1975 and then I went into college. So Scientology, when I left college, it was kind of viewed as something that was a cult, but at the same time, people with a lot of money could afford it. And so
in cult in a lot of ways.
It was, Werner Erhard, who started EST, he actually was a grade 4 release, Mitch.
He and Tony Robbins was like practically memorized the Dianetics book before he started his thing.
Tony Robbins too, hilarious.
Yeah, I'm telling you, Hubbard was the
damn guidebook.
Yeah, I mean,
Werner Erhard had an auditor on staff, unbeknownst to the EST going public. And I did EST out of curiosity. I was involved in it when I was young, and I was experimenting after I left the Pentecostal faith. So Werner actually had an auditor on staff doing sec checking of the EST trainers and other people.
Wow.
And when Hubbard came, Hubbard left, things were getting hot. There was an arrest warrant for him in France on fraud because he was convicted in absentia of fraud, sentenced to 4 years. He came 1971. He comes back to America, 72, I believe, with Jim Giancalsi, and he lives in Queens, New York, under a fake name. And that's where he's catching up on American culture because he's been out of America. He left around 66. He's catching up on this American culture, and he sees Werner Erhard on American television on the Mike Douglas show. And that's where he writes he writes program Snow White, and then he writes a program to destroy Est and Werner Erhard because he thinks that Erhard is doing group processing, and he said he's doing early Dianetic stuff.
Yeah.
But he was jealous of because Werner Erhard had 500,000 people go through EST, including a lot of celebrities. And he was far more charismatic, very charismatic. Ron had no charisma.
None.
And Werner did, you know.
Right.
So, and I mean, I knew Werner's brother, Nathan Rosenberg, and at the Newport Beach Area Center. So this was all going through a lot. It was interesting to speak to counterculture, Dodge. When I was involved in EST, and I was pretty involved, I went through the GSLP, their 6-month program, and there were a lot of people who had left Scientology who were going into EST because they just couldn't. They didn't like Scientology, and according to one study published on Xenu.net, and I don't recall the source of the study, but about, and Shannon, you might know this, supposedly Scientology has about a 90% dropout rate. People last only about 1 to 2 years and then they drop out.
Interesting.
And Hubbard wrote, if they're going to leave, let them leave quickly. Otherwise, consider that they've signed on like the rest of us for the duration of eternity.
Huh.
So yeah, it was counterculture, and I think Burroughs has done the best work on what it was, and he left. He actually wrote why he left and what he didn't like, and Hubbard actually wrote a very dignified response to William Burroughs.
Wow.
And that's available online. He actually engaged. That was the only time I think Hubbard didn't want to take on someone of Burroughs' stature at that point in time, because I think Hubbard was the type of bully who, if he perceived you as being more powerful or equal to him, he wasn't going to fight you.
Yeah.
But if you were less, he was going to destroy you. So
Yeah.
Burroughs at that time was so big of a cultural figure that Hubbard didn't want to tangle with him, because that would bring the rest of the counterculture down on Scientology. Right. So Hubbard called that shot. I think he was, so he did influence counterculture, but more so, I think Dodge is right to say he influenced some of the New Age elements, more of the fringe New Age elements.
Yeah.
But the fact that Charles Manson embraced him, that shows kind of the bandwidth that people would look to Scientology for.
Right. Well, I mentioned that only because I've always had an interest in the 1950s specifically, and the perception of it is that it's this very cookie cutter environment where most of society is still very Christian and very religious, and dog and 2 kids and all that. But it wasn't. It was like the 40s is more like that, but in the 50s there were tons of movements that were secular for the first time, where you look at your life's philosophy. First it was like the power of positive thinking, which that incorporated a lot of God. And so I always thought of L. Ron Hubbard's Dianetics to be the power of positive thinking, and essentially ripping off most of what Norman Vincent Peale said, but just take out the God stuff. So Norman Vincent Peale was already sort of issuing the new Bible that wasn't you directly get your living instructions from the Bible. It's now Norman Vincent Peale, but you still respect God. And then L. Ron Hubbard was the subsequent person. And then, of course, you had the explosion of rock and roll. And I always wonder, with him being in the cover of Time Magazine, Life Magazine, and people thinking, oh, there's a non-Christian way to treat people and go about my life. That was the beginning of the whole secular movement in a lot of ways. So sadly, ironically, I give him, there were other people around at that time as well. So it wasn't
How to Win Friends and Influence People written in the 50s?
Yeah, no, right. And that's the thing, right? When Dianetics.
Yeah, that was Dale Carnegie. But Dodge, let me set it up for you guys. This is important. This is very important to realize. L. Ron Hubbard began Dianetics as a secular nonprofit psychotherapy business. Right. And what Hubbard wanted to do, Hubbard was delivering Freudian psychotherapy, and he just used different terminology, but it was he praises Freud in his early work. So it began as a secular nonprofit, and the idea was to teach people how to do Dianetics auditing, which had no e-meter at all. And so his Dianetics Foundation, he got in trouble in New Jersey. He was criminally charged for practicing medicine or teaching medicine without a license. He left New Jersey bankrupt. He set up in Wichita, still secular nonprofit psychotherapeutic. He meets Volney Matheson, gets the meter. And then the first thing he does with the e-meter, he does this. You can Google electro-psychometric scouting battle of the universe as L. Ron Hubbard. Cool. He actually uses Volney Matheson's e-meter, and Volney was a chiropractor who had met Hubbard. And Volney was delivering auditing techniques. And Carl Jung had done auditing in 1906 with an e-meter. And what we were listing.
Way back then, so there's an e-meter of 1906.
Yeah, I have it on my blog. You can read my history of the e-meter. And so what Carl Jung was doing in 1906 was using an e-meter, and he was looking for trigger words. So he would read a list of prepared words. And so if you had father, home, trauma, and those would read on the meter, it meant you were probably sexually molested by your father at home. Jung was looking for a way to compress Freudian psychotherapy down by word association, by getting the words that read on the meter. Volney Matheson obviously read his work, and he had Technique 100. He had the Matheson meter, which Hubbard adopted. But what Hubbard does when he gets the meter, there's this electropsychometric scouting. He actually starts auditing into the ether to get a Satan trapped on the meter. And he has like the world's first electronic seance on a meter.
How cool, interesting.
And then that's like the summoning and banishing of spirits. So you can see his occultic roots in the meter that later gets up engineered in the OT levels. So then Hubbard writes a letter to Helen O'Brien, his secretary, in 1953, saying, hey, what do you think of this religion angle?
Right.
And because we can't get any worse PR than we're getting now, why don't we start the Church of Scientology? So he puts Dianetics into bankruptcy, sells his shares to Don Purcell, and starts the Church of Scientology in 1953. So he repositions, to your point, Dodge, he starts out as he wants to do for psychotherapy what McDonald's did for hamburgers. Right. He wants to have a fast assembly line, inexpensive way, psychotherapeutic technique where he'll teach people how to audit, make franchises, take a 10% cut.
Right.
But he repositions and realigns to become a religion for the protections.
Right.
And he also discovers past lives, that he would audit people and they would go into their past lives.
Right.
And since he's getting paid for it, why not let talk about anything? And that gives rise to the whole track. So then when you give the whole track going back trillions and billions of years, forever, you can talk about anything on the meter getting paid. So there's a lot that went on that has been covered up, that Scientology hides its history. And that's what I've tried to do, is tell the true story of how Hubbard pivots from psychotherapy, damns it, and then goes into religion and says Dianetics treats of the mind, Scientology treats of the spirit. So he was a businessman. So because we know that Mary Sue said Ron did stuff when they needed money, he'd issue new tech. We also know that he was an occultist. We also know that he was eclectic, and he would pivot from engrams, which would become later on body thetans, because the e-meter is agnostic. You could use it in any field. So
Right.
So there was a lot going on, Dodge.
Yeah.
But you're right. He did influence culture.
Yeah. One thing I just want to add to that is at the time when he was developing Dianetics, there was a lot of interest in what's called exposure therapy, which was the idea of having a guided session or a person who would guide you through your trauma. This is 100% what Dianetics is.
Right.
And it was a bit of a fad back in the early 50s, late 40s. This sort of, we're going to relive your trauma. Right. Eventually later on, you had this sort of primal scream therapy where people are jumping back into their trauma. And exposure therapy is still a thing. It's not a mainline thing. It's not a first thing, but it's still a thing. And I think he really worked. He was kind of piggybacking on this whole, like, no, I got it. I got the exposure therapy thing, because he did this very specific thing where, it was a guided process where an auditor would sit across from a pre-clear. The pre-clear would close their eyes. The auditor would say, locate a moment of pain in a consciousness. Good. Tell me when you're there. Good. Go through the incident. Tell me what's happening as you go along. And there was just this repetitive guided processes, which was underpinned by the the basic ingredients in hypnotism, which are focus and repetition. If you can create those two things, focus and repetition, you have a high likelihood of hypnotizing somebody. And I think it's why when the American Psychiatric Association, when the mental health industry looked at this book, they basically said, this could be the foundation for a cult, and they weren't crazy about it. So they actually knew it. But anyway, I think this whole idea of guided session, re-exposing yourself to therapy, which was very popular back then, that Hubbard was also jumping on that bandwagon.
Well, Mitch, you make a good point, because Dianetics in 1950 was hypnotic regression. Hubbard called it Dianetic reverie, but he was actually putting you into a hypnotic regression.
Right.
And that's the technique. And now, Sigmund Freud abandoned hypnotic regression in favor of free association.
Stop that.
I think we lost Dodge.
That's okay. He'll be back.
He'll be back. But look what we have. We got us. We're good.
Yeah. So
yeah, I was saying I'm going to the bathroom, but I'm still listening.
Okay.
Okay. Awesome.
I just
turn your mic off. I don't want to be hearing that stuff.
Yeah. No.
That's why I removed myself from this stage.
Okay, so there was there was hypnotic regression. Sigmund Freud was using it in 1890, and he abandoned it in favor of free association. So instead of putting you into per what you're saying, and then there's Sargan's work with World War II soldiers who were traumatized. And so Hubbard, because he spent almost that year in Oakdale Naval Hospital reading texts, and you got to remember, people don't remember, but back then, when I was growing up and even in college, you couldn't check out psychiatric textbooks from your public library, like things on abnormal sexuality, abnormal psychology.
All the era of Kinsey and stuff.
Yeah, you had to have a special permission to check that out.
That's interesting.
Why?
No, because it was like it contained sexual content. You don't realize how it was so repressed that Freud's big breakthrough was free association, where you could talk about repressed sexual trauma. Talking therapy was revolutionary, as was Freud articulating the model of the unconscious.
Right.
Because prior to that, the Judeo-Christian mores of Western society would not allow you to talk about that. You might be able to allude to it in a confession, priest penitent. So Freud was revolutionary for what he did at the time, even though Freudianism's out of vogue. In the mainstream, it's cognitive behavioral therapy. So Hubbard read all this, and he's a cultural magpie. He's a parrot. He parrots things, and he's good at repackaging it.
Yes.
So he comes up with his model of the reactive mind and engrams, and he puts you into hypnotic reverie to go back and regress and go through the event, like Mitch is saying, exposure therapy over and over. And he was a bestseller. But here's a statistic. Mitch, you may not know. First year Dianetics released May 9, 1950, which is a holy date in Scientology.
Right.
Because that's book one, as they call Dianetics. Dianetics sold 150,000 copies, and then it crashed and burned. It was a fad. It was like the hula hoop.
Right.
It was. I remember those commercials.
Well, no. But he's not talking about the commercials. He's talking about back in 1950.
When it was printed.
Dianetics was a fad, so it sells 150,000.
Is that all it sold? It was a bestseller. As you could sell 100.
Well, no, by mid '80s, it had sold 3 million copies. Which
No, what I'm just saying,
abysmal. But
the first year is 150,000. His second book, Science of Survival, sells less than 5,000.
Oh, that's
how badly.
I was going to ask you, why didn't he just do a sequel and continue writing these best-selling books? But he tried.
It crashed. He
tried.
Sort of like it was sort of like a fad. We're like, hey, let's try this Dianetics thing.
Yeah,
see if because psychiatrists were very expensive, and people who had a lot of money could could see their analyst. Hubbard talked about himself. It talked about patients. He didn't talk about pre-clears. He said, bring the patient like you were a practitioner. And so it was very counterculture, but like I said, I think he tried to do, again, McDonald's, that system of franchising psychotherapeutic systems, and it crashed and burned. That's why he had to pivot and reinvent into religion, because there's a much larger market. And so he influenced a lot of people with the idea that there was a reactive mind if you could erase your engrams. And that's what William Burroughs was interested in. And not a lot of people went clear.
No, and Burroughs was also a heroin addict, so he was really looking to solve that problem.
Would that have made him a better Scientologist?
Being a heroin addict? It made me a better one.
That's well, yeah. I wonder, Mitch, because you went from being addicted to heroin and not too far after you were looking for an answer and rose up, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, was it like, well, anything's
I want to make sure. I want to make sure Jeffrey made his point before I answer that.
No, it's just funny what you said, because I was a Jesus person in the 70s, in Calvary Chapel and everything.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know how many people I heard say, I used to be hooked on heroin. Now I'm hooked on Jesus. It's like,
sure.
That doesn't come out right, but okay. I know what you're trying to say, but
yes,
hooked on Jesus.
So your question was, what was it like going from being a young? Well, I was 23-year-old film school dropout, addicted to heroin, and then
was that why you stayed? Because it's like they could be as rude as they want, but this is now I'm not on heroin, and therefore this is the
no. They weren't rude to me. No. It was all different. Nobody was rude. People were really nice. Nobody was rude. I mean, I woke up. No, they didn't even want money. It was an amazing story. I mean, I woke up. I woke up Sunday morning, a week before Christmas. My girlfriend was dead on the floor in the kitchen. It was kind of traumatic. And then she and I had been in a film together, and the director of that film had subsequently started doing Scientology. So he took me to Celebrity Center, and they were under those days. It was under the leadership of a woman by the name of Yvonne Jench, who actually genuinely cared about people. She's the one who got John in, or she didn't get John in, but she looked after John. And she's the one who founded Celebrity Center, and they took me in. They called my father and they said, look, he can come stay with us for $250 a week. It costs like nothing. So, and I bought a couple of cheap courses for like $50. And believe it or not, the person who was kind of, helping me as my person said, look, if you try this, you can get off of drugs, and then you can decide if you want to be in Scientology. They don't do that today. Today, that person would be sent to the RPF. Yes, that would be considered reasonable, but that was my experience. Like
this story makes sense to me. What you describing how you got in, that makes sense to me. How people go in it today, I don't think they do.
No, they would never do that. Back when I went in, there was one Narconon. Narconon's the drug rehab.
Yeah.
There was one Narconon in LA, and it was all convicts. It was all guys out of jail.
Right.
And they were like, we would never send you there. That's like for hardcore criminals who are in prison. It was founded. It was founded by a guy named Willie Benitez, who'd read Hubbard, and he read him in prison, and he decided that based on Hubbard's description of human nature that he could maybe use that to help addicts, and he started a group, a self-help group, which, listen, you form a community, you form a structure, you have some kind of something, and people will get better. It can even be based on bullshit, but if you get what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
I did find this community, and I went to. I'll give you a perfect example. I was really strung out when I first went there. I mean, I was like I was heavy duty, like going through withdrawals and so forth. And there was no purification program. There was no Narconon for me. I just did this hardcore. I did this cold turkey. Like I stayed up all night. I polished the floors. Right. I took all the staff's work from them because I couldn't sleep. So I worked in the kitchen. I worked in the nursery. There were children. This was before David Miscavige banned, kids in the Sea Org. There was like the actor Vonnie Ribisi. He was there. He was a baby. He was born in the Sea Org. Yeah, he was born in the Sea Org. So
very different.
This was my experience, and then I went to study Scientology all day long, and I had these long 12-hour days. But people kept saying to me, if you just confront this problem, you can handle it. You can handle it. You can handle it. Right. And 6 weeks later, I'd gained like 30 pounds, and I was sleeping like a baby. And the medical person came to me and said, "What do you want to do? You have no obligation to us." And I'm like, "Well, I want to get some auditing." So, I went back to school. I went back to college. I'd taken a leave from California Institute of the Arts. I was one of the first students. I was a member of the first 4-year graduating class, so it was kind of a big deal for me to get back there. Yeah. I mean, I was like I wasn't just like a hardcore junkie. I mean, I was like a college dropout. Yeah, I mean, and I ended up graduating from one of the most prestigious film schools in the country. But that was my experience, right? So, and then while I was working on my career, mostly in the 80s and 90s, I wasn't interacting with science. I was like doing some stuff. I mean, I got up to OT5 by the time I started working for Gold, but it was a really different scene, and then it morphed. But here's the deal: I have to say this. And I can't stress this enough. It is in to be an abusive organization is in Scientology's DNA. It's in the DNA of cults.
Yeah.
I was very familiar with Synanon, which if you guys aren't, I almost went to Synanon.
And they're the basis of all the therapeutic boarding schools and bad kid schools.
Yeah, exactly. So Synanon was an amazing phenomenon, and you look what happened. They were a darling. The whole not in my neighborhood. When I went to rehab before Scientology, and then ended up being cast in a movie playing a heroin addict, I almost went to Synanon, right? But I wouldn't because it was a cult. But it was a darling.
It was a cult, so you wouldn't go to.
Yeah, it was a cult. I didn't want to go because it was a cult. So I ended up in Scientology for most of my life, which was really screwed up. But I think my point here is that Synanon started like there were people that weren't drug addicts. It was specifically aimed at heroin addicts. There were people like Leonard Nimoy who used to go down there and give acting lessons. There were wealthy people who sold their homes and donated money, and they wanted to live in the Synanon community because they wanted to be part of that community because it was seen as a really healthy community. So where does it end up? It ends up that one of its detractors, who happened to be an attorney that was speaking out against it, they put a rattlesnake through his mail slot and almost killed the guy. A couple people went to jail on that one. Then they made the biggest private gun sale, the gun purchase of any private organization in the history of California. So they went from being this very benign organization that was very positive, that the wealthy people in Santa Monica wanted them in the neighborhood. It wasn't like not in my neighborhood. To being an armed cult, to eventually being completely disbanded. And it's kind of the DNA of these organizations.
Yeah.
Eventually, like I discovered, if you interact with them long enough, especially if your interaction revolves around your professional work, like it did with me, you're going to be humiliated. You're going to be abused. You're going to be blamed for things you didn't do. And people are going to get credit for what you did do. and you're just going to end up like a wreck. So it's just like, that's the deal. So, but my experience, I did get in during that sort of very halcyon, sort of warm, fuzzy.
That's how a lot of them start, and that's what I was going to ask you. If they didn't, if Miscavige had never existed, and it was David Mayo at the head, or Pat Roker or whatever, and they kept the general initial intentions that made Scientology popular in the 1970s, would Scientology A, be more compassionate, and B, have 2 million members? Or is it all within the cult DNA? Where eventually
I'm going to say it's in the cult DNA.
Me too.
Because that's
no different.
I'm telling you, that's the safe bet. We don't need this shit. We don't need to find out if there's some compassionate version of a cult, because there isn't.
Right.
It's like, so there you go. That's what it is.
Well, when you read these things that L. Ron Hubbard wrote about how you get back at your enemies, and how you abuse the legal system, and how you use lawyers and private investigators, and you destroy your enemies, that is the DNA of Scientology.
Commonality.
Yeah, no, it is.
It's violent. It's violent. It's spiteful, vengeful.
Yeah.
And there's no line beneath which they're willing to go to get back at their quote unquote enemies.
Yeah. Well, and there's also,
and that was Hubbard.
You're Shannon. You're so right. I mean, you've nailed it. You totally got it.
Yeah.
Not Miscavige.
Well, I'm saying he just continued that same message that Hubbard had.
He's a psychopath, born into it.
Yeah, I mean, but here, let's put it like this. Okay, so Hubbard writes this policy. People refer to it as too gruesome, right? It basically, he says in ethics policy, you got to make the punishment too gruesome for the person to confront. And that's how you keep people's discipline in. And from this, they even have the noun, give them a too gruesome. It became like a word.
Right.
But the thing is that too gruesome to who? Too gruesome to L. Ron Hubbard was pretty gruesome. Yeah. Too gruesome to Miscavige is freaking sadistic.
Yeah.
It's horrible. It's putting a woman in a barrel and dousing her with cold water and hanging a sign on her that says lesbian.
Yeah. I read about that.
Condoning that kind of stuff. Like, it's sadistic. And you sure, they dismantled the hole up there. I've seen the piece, I was there when they tore it down. And
you were?
Oh yeah.
What were their comments on it? When you were there, when you saw, because you were there, again, it's fascinating talking to you, because you were there so much later than a lot of other people.
Yeah.
Were they like, this is wrong, we have to take it down, this is stupid? Or they're like, hey, good news.
No, they're like,
No.
It's a really weird, I don't know how to describe it to you. Okay, so I did this video. It's on my channel. It's on my video tab. It's called, the title of the video is I Did What for Scientology? And it's basically a video that I helped produce and that I'm interviewed in extensively. I think back at maybe 2014. It's about Golden Earth Productions. It's still on YouTube. They haven't taken it down. I took a copy of it. I put myself into a little box and I kind of walk you through all the BS, right, on the whole thing. And so that video is being shot. And when I'm shooting that thing, because I'm involved in the production of this thing, we're shooting this thing, and it's 200 yards away from where the hole is. Some of the scenes we shot, the sequences, they're 30 yards from the hole. They're 20 feet from the hole. Like, this thing was like, and I'm sort of blissfully not even noticing it. And everybody at Gold knows about it. Every staff member, because Gold, it was a David Miscavige project, but Gold ran it. Gold.
So it's like all Gold. It was like all
100. It was all Gold. I mean, so one of Miscavige's staff put the bars in the windows and whatever, but it was run by Gold. That's who actually physically ran it, and they all knew about it, and they all thought it was okay because they thought it was okay because it was Miscavige's idea, and he's the one that's expanding Scientology. Yeah, he's the one that's making this whole game work. He's the one that's going to get us, to our final destination, blah, 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 blah. So if he says, lock a bunch of people up, God damn it, lock them up. So I didn't know about it until Going Clear came out. And because by that time I was working on I originally just did positive stuff, but now I'm being brought in to do videos, pushing against Anonymous, and to kind of do it.
Right? Yes, combat all this.
And then I get handled a folder that says Karen de la Carriere in it, and I open it up, and it's got all this junk in it. And then somebody says, here, can you please go through this? Because, we need your opinion on how it should be written. And it's horribly written. So, I go through it. I do some text editing, blah, blah, blah. That was my big role on that because I hated doing all that kind of stuff. I mean, it was wearing me down, man. I mean, I have like, what do you call it? Like emotional flashbacks, like nobody's business from all that kind of shit. It's just, you don't realize how much your own complacency rips you up. It's like self-mutilation. It's like self-harm.
Would you ever write these responses or videos, in response to Going Clear or whatever, or Rod Miscavige Sr., or whatever it might be, and feel like, God, maybe they have a point? And was that one of the reasons that helped you kind of leave the cult ultimately, because you were, meant to consume all this negative press?
Not so much now. Not so much me. I mean, that did happen to other people. My thing was like, I couldn't stand the interaction anymore, and I didn't want to be unemployed. So I had to deal with, the shame of not wanting to be unemployed, because God damn it, you better, I was like, I've tried to be as brave as I was cowardly for sticking around, because I wanted to figure it out. There's another little component in this, which happens when you're deeply into something like Scientology. You see the bad stuff, that it's bad, you need to get away from it, and yet you're so programmed that you feel that the getting away with it is a failure. You're like, you still feel like you're failing them. You feel, oh God, I'm just a failure. Part of it is this thing of like, why do service people fight? They'll often say, well, I fight for the guy in the trenches next to me. Yeah, so there's a little of that, because there was this crew, that I had like trained and like made all these films with, and I knew if I left, like their lives were just gonna it wasn't gonna be really positive. They were gonna have some stuff to make up for. And I mean, I had left for a while because I went to work for Scientology Media Productions. That didn't go very well for them. That was very difficult for them. So there was a lot of moving parts in this whole thing. But when Going Clear came out, I wasn't restricted from the internet like other Scientologists. I could look at whatever I wanted. I could Google the worst trashiest stuff.
Very different, right?
Yeah, because in my position, somebody could walk up to me like Lou and say, "Hey, did you hear about so and so has some bad thing?"
Probably be aware.
And if I said no, she would be like, "What the fuck is your problem? You don't give a shit." Right. We're being attacked. And you don't even. So I was always looking at this stuff, right? And like when Jason Bday left, and they're like, the actor Jason Bday, right? Yeah. When Jason left, he was a good friend of mine. I didn't give a shit that he left. I thought, hey, go do your thing. I didn't like that he was speaking out, mostly because I thought it would be bad for him, just because it's not. But it ended up not being bad for him. But I got handed a voice recorder, which I never turned on, and was said, hey, give Jason a call because he's going to go on the Matt Lauer show, and you need to talk him out of it. So whatever, like I would get involved in stuff like that. So. Like nobody in Scientology is going to talk to Jason Bday, but I'm being told to call him. So I was more. So anyway, I got handed a bootleg copy from Sundance of Going Clear, right, on a cell phone or whatever. And I'm watching this fucking thing. I'm going, yeah, it's a really crappy image, but I'm going, this is a good motherfucking movie. I'm digging this movie. This is actually a good movie.
Right. So you did genuinely enjoy it. That's hilarious.
Yeah, no, but I'll tell you a really funny story. Okay, so Alex Gibney, who I don't know, when I saw Going Clear, I'm like, I think I'm going to send him my resume. He's probably seen a bunch of my work, and maybe he'll give me a job.
Why not?
So, but anyway, so just to back up a little bit, when we did the Industry of Death Museum, which was a project that I headed up, the Anti-Psychiatry Museum.
Oh no! Did you?
Oh yeah, I did that whole thing. I did all the films.
Oh, that was you? Cool.
Yeah, I designed the inside of the place.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah, well, and I did it in like 10 weeks with no sleep. And when I was done with it, I had a horribly traumatized sleep disorder, and I've never really slept well since then. It's really I've been through a lot of fucking trauma treatment because of not all that crap. But anyway, there's about 10% of what's it's not. There's a lot of true stuff in there, but it's whatever. I don't want to get into that, but I've done it's on the internet. There's a virtual tour you can take of the museum. I've taken people through parts of it online, and kind of talk them through. Like, I want to do more of that because it's fascinating.
Anybody can just walk in, right? And
yeah. They won't even just give them a fake name, go in.
Anybody but me.
Yeah, but you or me, anybody but us four.
Yeah.
But I don't know. You might.
Dodge, you can't go in.
No, Dodge,
I don't know. I don't think I'm that well known. Maybe I'm underselling myself, though.
Yeah,
are.
I think you could easily put on, like, dye your hair and put on glasses and grow a mustache, and you could walk in and nobody give a shit. But my point is, when I got that project thrust at me, and that was a 2-year, that project been going on for 2 years, it was a disaster. Miscavige had authorized shutting down a block of Sunset Boulevard, which takes a year in advance. And then I get this thing dumped to me. I got, like, it's October and the thing's going to open on December 17th. This was pain, right? This was like, I got to make this thing happen, right? This is like every waking minute for all that time. You're nauseous with the stress because you can't not succeed because they got a block of Sunset Boulevard shut down. And if you blow it, it's going to take a year to get the thing done again. Like, you're just, plus just my own professional attitude, like being a professional and wanting to make things happen. That was the big threat to me, and not the trouble I get into not doing it. I just felt like I can't fail it. But anyway, my whole point in telling you this story is that at the beginning of that project, I went and grabbed a bunch of texts on psychiatry, pro and con, and I grabbed some films that I really admired and that I wanted to show my team as models. And these are the model films that we're working with. I really want you to pay close attention to these films. One of the films was Alex Gibney's Smartest Guys in the Room.
Oh, sure. Enron, right?
Yeah, Enron.
Funny.
And so this was my team and all the people that were exposed to me on that project. They thought Alex Gibney was a genius filmmaker.
Yeah.
A genius filmmaker.
Funny.
I mean, it was like he would be talked about.
He's very good.
Yeah, no, he's very good. I mean, I wish he would just do a documentary once on something obscure. He tends to pull headlines and then do documentaries. There's a lot of unknown things out there that deserve attention, and but anyway, my point is, when going Clearjaw, all of a sudden it was like, Alex Gibney, do not mention that name. Do not, like, it was just expunged from history. The fact that we were all gaga over Alex Gibney because he did this great documentary, and we scrutinized it, we emulated it, we took all kinds of intelligence from it. It always cracked me up. I mean, whenever I see any of his work, I kind of shudder with glee because the way the cognitive dissonance that they had to deal with, because it's like, Alex Gibney made this thing. But wait. We love Alex Gibney. Wait.
What happened to him? Yeah, right.
Yeah, I hope I get to.
It's like your relatives that one day are your, fellow cult member, and the next day they're suppressive people.
Oh yeah,
Sure.
yeah. But this is like, you just have to shut up about it. Like, you can't.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Yeah, I hope I get to meet him someday because I would love to tell him that story.
Well, it's part of the three, I think, watershed moments that brought Scientology down. Really, is I think it was Tom Cruise and the Couch, South Park, and Going Clear.
Going Clear for sure.
Yeah, and then Leah's show, because
much later on, of course. Yeah.
Right. In terms of numbers, I mean, I added it up just based on subscribers. Like, because you can't, we don't have access to the metrics of, how many people watched it on what streaming service. But, it went from A&E, I think they had 40 million subscribers. Then it went on to, where did it go next? It went on to Netflix. One time it was on Netflix. At that, they had like 170 million subscribers. And then it went on to Hulu. And you add it all up, and it was like over 250,000 people who potentially could have watched this. And I bet you a lot of them did. Because I got to tell you, back in the 90s, I'd be sitting on a business class flight going to someplace for the church to do something, and a guy next to me or whoever would say, "So what do you do for a living?" And I'd say, "Oh, I make films for Scientology." And they go, "Oh, that's interesting." And then when the Leah show happened, it was like, "So what do you do for a living?" "I make films for Scientology." And it would be like they'd push the goddamn service button and ask to get moved to a different seat. Just like,
That's funny.
It was yeah. I mean, I didn't meet a person who didn't say, "Oh yeah, I saw that Leah thing."
Mm-hmm.
And
that's true.
More than anything else, isn't that interesting? That changed the general public perception.
Yes.
Yeah. I think the other stuff was kind of like, punching Scientology around the ears and kind of softening it up.
Huh.
But what Leah and Mike did is like I don't even think they get enough credit.
That's right.
Yeah, because everybody streamed the goddamn thing. When I finally watched it, I streamed it like nonstop. I think I was done with 3 seasons in like a day and a half.
Yeah, right.
And I thought it was amazing because a lot of those stories I knew, and I knew the people. And those stories aren't bullshit, man. Those are the real deal. Yeah. And I was telling them that we were really not getting along at this point. I said, you know what you guys should do? You should order every Scientologist to watch that show, and that you should hand them a DA pack. And I was just kind of pissed at that point because I was like, that's what you should do. Because here's the deal. Some poor Scientologist is having the conversation in the supermarket, and somebody saying, oh, Scientology, I saw that show. And they're saying, well, that's just a bunch of blah, 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 blah. And then that person says, did you see it? And they have to say, no, I'm not allowed to see it.
Right. And then that gets in the question, what kind of cults are you?
Yeah, then exactly. That, oh, you're a cult. So if they were smart, they would have just told everybody to watch it and then gave them a script, and so that they could answer the question, yeah, I saw it. And let me tell you what the deal is. Because I could do that. I'd be making it up, but I could do it. I could be on that side of the debate team and tell you why it was a bunch of crap.
Right. Right. Yeah,
anyway, so if you want my story more in detail,
it's
in my book. I really spent a lot of time, going through my whole past and how I got into Scientology and blah, blah, blah.
Did that re-traumatize you doing that?
No, it actually pulled me out of it.
It's therapeutic.
No, I was like near suicidal on my couch for a year and a half playing video games. And then I had to do something because I really didn't want to die. So I dragged myself to my desk and I started writing a book just to write because I love writing. And I've told this a number of times. It was kind of like what the Aborigines do. They do this thing called a walkabout. I don't know a lot about it, so I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, but I do know it's a very, very, very dear thing to them that the Australian government has even recently been protecting and restoring, because these people who've been on the earth for 80,000 years, if they don't go out and do this walkabout, they don't know who they are. They don't find their identity. And when you've been in Scientology for all those years, and Scientology has literally taken your identity and replaced it, and you've paid them for the privilege of doing it, right? I mean, and they're like, you're a mortal spiritual being, and you got body thetans, and you're this, and you're this, and you're this, and you're none of those fucking things. And it's telling, and you're convinced that it has all the answers. Your walkabout is done. You're never going to have it. You're never going to find your identity. And so my book was just my walkabout.
Okay.
It was, and it was, I decided that I made a decision that I was going to put as much creativity into it as I put into work for the church as a way of trying to balance it out.
Good.
And so it was, it was after a time, some people read some of it and blah, 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 blah. And it was like, oh, no, you should finish this and you should publish it. And blah. And then it kind of built up a head of steam, and I became very passionate about, and it's a good looking book. I mean, it's look, it's really nicely designed. It's got really nice little, this is, sorry. I was going to show you the inside, but this was a screw up.
Yeah, please.
Oh, I would, but this was a screw up. Somebody accidentally put my cover.
Whoops, hold on.
They put my cover on the Red Hot Book of Spanish Slang and Idioms.
Nice.
I was happy. I was actually happy to get because I live in LA.
Yeah, it kind of works.
It does. I was and plus it's it still works as a display copy.
When are you gonna do an audio book version? By the way, I was looking for one.
Well, if you want to look at this, look where I am right now. Right.
Yeah. Right.
I'm in a sound booth that I built under an adult bunk bed, and I've been trapped in here for months working on an audio book.
Oh, good. Okay. So it'll come out.
Yeah, but it's a really good looking book, and it has these nice little icon illustrations.
That's cool.
This is the chapter I wrote on Leni Riefenstahl called The Seduction of Opportunity, all about what it means for an artist to work, the responsibility of an artist to know that they're working for evil people. But anyway,
because you were able to have a creative output, and make this. So that's why I admired that you had a better situation compared to a lot of other people. That's why I got out.
Yeah, I mean, in one way, but you have to remember that abuse is a spectrum. At the one end, you might have,
I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah. At the one end, you have people in the hole
Right.
They're
Just
being
'cause you were in the hole
horribly,
or an abuse.
yeah,
right.
they're being horribly physically abused, and they're
Right.
eating horrible food. And
Right.
then, gradiently you move into less what appears less to be abuse. And then at the
Right.
far end of abuse, you have Tom Cruise, and people are like,
Right.
he's abused? How is he abused? Well, every marriage of his has been destroyed by the church. He's
Sure.
estranged from his biological child.
Right.
His other two kids are trapped endlessly in a cult, and he's completely siloed off from the world and thinks he's doing the right thing. That's a very intense type of abuse. How does that person, Tom Cruise, how does he come back from that? How does he rejoin society? What he would have to go through would be amazing. So,
That's true.
people are like, I've been accused of, I probably shouldn't say it, but some person, and this is indicative of some of the toxicity that was floating around on YouTube. Like, I got accused of like, well, you wanted to be there. You were being paid. You probably had 14-year-old Sea Org servants making your bed at gold. And I'm like, well, no, that was not it. Anyway.
It's not all cookies and cream. Right. And I appreciate you saying that, because there's always rifts in the YouTube sphere with anybody.
But that's whatever. It's just going to happen. Yeah. And a lot of that is just Osa fanning the flames. And Jeffrey knows all about that.
I'd imagine. Let me ask you a question. Is Osa happy with all these divisions, do you think, with some of the schisms with Aaron and others, etc.?
Oh, I'm sure. No, I'm sure. No, I'm sure I'm trying to think. What floor is that, Jeffrey? I'm trying to think. Karen would remember. That's like the sixth floor at the HCB where Osa is. There's a couple of floors.
The 10th floor is Osa. 11th floor is RTC.
Yeah, and then I think they have a lower floor too for administrative stuff.
It's like
I'm sure in one of those offices there's like a murder board, right? And it's got like everybody's picture on it. And it's got like pieces of yarn strung all over the place. And then it's got like who's connected to who on Facebook and social media and all this crazy stuff, because they're always going to look for the hierarchical organization. When Anonymous hit in 2008, it drove them insane because there was no organization, and they kept trying to piece one together. Some of the stuff they came up with was
their only defense. Their only defense is identifying their enemies. Like it's the only thing they know how to do. And what do they do with the people that have nothing to lose? They fall. That's what they do.
Yeah, well, like Chris Christopherson said, freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose.
Nothing left to lose. Nothing ain't worth nothing, but it's free.
Yeah.
Classic.
Anyway. Yeah, you're absolutely right. But it's because there has to be a hierarchy. Now think about this. Does having a formidable enemy make you more important or less important?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Probably
it makes you more important.
It does.
Yeah. It does. Unimportant people don't have enemies.
Right.
I mean, they're beyond their next door neighbor.
Right.
Really important people.
I felt good when I realized Scientology was fair gaming me in some sense, because I felt like
you should. But like you look at like people like Martin Luther King and these different people, and they're like they have like dark forces are conspiring against them. And so Hubbard was really big on making sure that there was lots of two things. One, the stakes were really high. It's Scientology or oblivion, people. You're going to be a rock for the next 10 trillion years if we don't make it. And we have mega enemies that are trying to tear us down.
Yeah.
Okay. That's why it's so hard to get people out of Scientology.
Right. But that's, with anything, even civil rights, a rift, there's a rift between Malcolm X and MLK, for example, but both of them were trying to get justice in their way, which actually leads me to a random question that Jeff might know. With the relationship with the Nation of Islam, did L. Ron Hubbard ever meet Louis Farrakhan or Elijah Muhammad, or was it a purely Miscavige invention? Interesting.
Yeah, and what's interesting to that point of the Nation of Islam in Scientology, there is no known picture in existence of David Miscavige and Louis Farrakhan together.
Interesting.
And I've always argued that Mr. Farrakhan does not want to be seen with the likes of David Miscavige.
Right.
Funny. So we'll take your money, but
right. No, I'm not kidding.
I believe you. I mean,
no.
We're all white devils. Why would you want?
Oh yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
No, it's more profound. Yeah, I mean, Mr. Farrakhan is very particular about. Hubbard was a racist. There's an old website called Solitary Trees. You can Google it on my Scientology Money Project blog, L. Ron Hubbard Racism. And I copied it because the church got it taken down. It's all of Hubbard's racist quotes. And Mr. Farrakhan was quick to excuse L. Ron Hubbard's racism. Very quick to give him a free pass.
Interesting.
Because he said that the benefit of the tech outweighed. He said to his audience, how many of you here went to college? How many of you had white teachers? How many did you ever ask them if they use the N-word? No. Right. So we turned to Hubbard for the greater wisdom. But what happened is that they pivoted to a different message where Riza Islam said, when L. Ron Hubbard says that Dianetics was the result of 50,000 years of thinking men, and the Nation of Islam said that the black man is the original man.
That's right. That's right.
Therefore, Dianetics is really ours. We're the source of it.
They said he's acknowledging that they are the original people.
Yes.
Right. That's how they justify. I mean, that's one of the ways. There are other ways.
Sure, if you want to say that, okay.
So the rank and file in the Nation of Islam here in Chicago, their justification is that Dianetics can actually scrub the devil out of white. So therefore, L. Ron Hubbard is devil-less, basically.
Well, I have a question that maybe Jeffrey can answer. Okay, so they signed up. Essentially, they onboarded people into Dianetics first, not Scientology. En masse, like huge. Yeah. Like how the Moonies have they fill a stadium full of people and they marry them all. Well, these Nation of Islam guys, they were doing these mass onboarding of people into Dianetics. Somebody was getting commissions for all of that.
Yeah.
Where the hell was all that money going? Because that shit is a lot better than selling pies on the corner.
Yeah.
Okay. You're going to make a lot more money doing that.
Yeah. That's, I've always thought that David Miscavige was the reg for the IES, that he gets 10%.
Probably does.
And I was interviewed by a government agency, and I estimated his net worth to be above $50 million from being look, IAS is a legally separate corporation from the Church of Scientology International. Sure. And Miscavige, due to the Scientology's doctrine of exchange, he's the biggest fundraiser in the church.
Yeah. And
therefore, he would be entitled when he spoke at IAS rallies to get a commission. Yeah. But, which brings us back to the LRH birthday party.
Which it's been playing the whole time. We still have an hour and 10 minutes left of it.
Unbelievable.
Now, I scanned through it, and one of the things that got me, and I wanted to make it while we're talking about divine figures or semi-divine or pretend divine. Mm-hmm. This LRH birthday event was the closest that Miscavige. Now, what I did is I do it differently. I mean, I went through the transcript, but I actually went over to the Scientology website. Awesome. I go to the Scientology website all the time. I call it dumpster diving because you have to know your enemy.
Yes, right.
And they're very much my enemy. And this is the closest. Yeah, this is the closest they have to making L. Ron Hubbard God. And it was really interesting. Miscavige made a statement, and let me get it right here. I want to read it. Where this is the closest I've seen to them deifying L. Ron Hubbard. And so this is, and I'm sure, Mitch, they've used AI to emulate Danny Sherman. I think they have an AI Danny Sherman emulator.
Yeah, undoubtedly they may have. They may have done that.
Well, follow this language. Miscavige is saying, in LRH's birthday celebration, we're giving a present what he most wished for, that perennial gift of expansion. Okay.
Yeah.
Now listen to this. And never was it more appropriate than now and tonight, in the wake of a year when that word expansion has become synonymous with eternity, okay? And where the wellspring of eternity is itself source. That means L. Ron Hubbard as source is the wellspring of eternity, he goes on. So although it's been said before, let it be said once more. If beings can be anywhere, then LRH is everywhere, and all you have to do is look at what's immortal. So they're saying LRH is everywhere. That is, he pervades the universe. And that's the closest statement Miscavige has ever made to saying L. Ron Hubbard is God.
He's never...
Because he's saying that beings are everywhere. That is, they're localized in bodies. But LRH is everywhere. That is, he pervades the starry empyrean of the entire cosmos.
Right.
And this was... I saw it as Miscavige pivoting, because a lot of criticism that Miscavige got hammered on was that it was all about him, and the church was drifting away from Hubbard. So I saw Miscavige carefully, because Mitch, I was watching Scientology magazines for years, and it was like 70% Hubbard, 30% David Miscavige. Then it shifted to where it was 80% Miscavige and 20% Hubbard on the pictures and images. Mm-hmm. But he was very careful to actually say the wellspring of eternity is source. And source in Scientology means L. Ron Hubbard. Right. And L. Ron Hubbard is everywhere in the universe. And so if I were to pose a question to Mr. Farrakhan, the Nation of Islam, what would you say to David Miscavige saying that L. Ron Hubbard is God? Because technically that would be idolatry.
Well, there is an explanation for that.
Ooh, I want to hear it, Shannon.
Yeah, there's a so on my YouTube channel there in the community tab, there's a debate between two members of Nation of Islam.
Oh yeah, it's interesting. I saw that.
Yeah, if you listen to that, they'll explain the mental gymnastics behind that. Yeah.
Oh, I'd like to read that, Shannon. Thank you.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's
what's your channel?
Are you? It's a YouTube
Will you link to
video.
It? Will you link to the video?
Yeah, guys, Shannon's channel is Chicago Scientology Audit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Shannon, that is so interesting, because I do enjoy watching.
I went down that rabbit hole myself.
Yeah, I've talked to people in the Nation, and
did you ever?
I was there when Riza Islam, he was hanging around with RFK Jr. and Lee Dundas, who's a Scientology attorney, and they were. I'm not being political. They were anti-vaxxers, and I don't take a stand on that. Mm-hmm. But I was at the trial of Riza and his mother, the late Hanan Islam. I watched them make their sovereign citizen argument in pre-trial and get 5 days in jail for contempt of court. Mm-hmm. So I got in on that, and you're right. The mental gymnastics. Here's the parallel that Mr. Farrakhan made. He compared the idea of the fallen Adamic nature. In the Bible, when Adam and Eve fall, it's called the Adamic nature, the sin nature.
Right.
And it's a lot of trauma. And he was saying that the reactive mind is somewhat like the fallen nature, and it can be audited through this technology. Now, actually, Farrakhan, when I was doing the origin story of how he got into Scientology, he's been in a lot longer than anybody thought. He used to go to his entourage and stay in the penthouse at Celebrity Center. And he was in a lot longer, probably prior to about 2005. But there's a story of how Freddie Johnson brought him in through Tony Muhammad of the Nation of Islam. So I've mapped out a chronology. Now, one question I have for you, Dodge, that's your real name, Dodge.
That's my legal name.
What a cool name to have, Dodge. So I was so Dodge, in the LRH birthday event, is there any mention made of Nation of Islam?
No.
I don't think so. That I've
really
some highlights and skimmed through it. I don't think
really.
Wow, they don't make any mention of the Nation.
No, but they had a representative.
I only got through it, so I
at the Chicago event.
But
so they had a representative at Chicago. That's where Miriam Mosque is, right?
Yes.
So, but the fact that Miscavige doesn't mention the Nation of Islam.
He did not by name, but he did thank the speaker that they invited from the Nation of Islam at the Chicago org event. What he did is he played a clip from his speech in Chicago thanking one of the members of the Nation of Islam.
Yeah, they'll do that. They'll kind of do they'll do like reruns from a previous event. Often they'll start out the whole event by just reprising.
That's interesting.
Event.
Well, that's the whole point of that speech. Is it's a best of all the openings of the org. You know, is that's what signaled this great expansion from this year. So he does a little clip from each space, you know, where they opened an ideal org, and they play a clip from his speeches there. Austin and where was it? Mexico City, Austin.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I was looking at some of the script, and he's talking about Quebec. Is there something? Are they opening something in Quebec now?
I don't know.
I don't know. I noticed that one of the world champions in the birthday game was the Church of Scientology Budapest. Budapest. That's how Christopher Walken said it on the Saturday Night Live sketch. Budapest. I'm thinking, dude, Scientology's not active in Budapest.
Right.
Like, that's not even
and you are, yeah.
And it was like, that's so obscure. You know, I follow Scientology and money laundering and things. This is a perfect money laundering vehicle. You could just throw out all the contents and put, you know, like $1 million in there in US $100 bills. Yeah. I think down in Colombia, this is what the cartels use. They get the Spanish language version, dump it out. No, really, there was I interviewed a guy a former serial member from Colombia, and in this Dianetics mission, I found one in Medellin. Cool. And I thought, there's no way an American cult's going to be allowed to be in Medellin, Colombia, without the cartel's permission.
Yeah, right.
And so what's happening, this guy told me, Adrian, that at the Dianetics missions, people would show up and pay like $5,000, $10,000 AP for advance payments, and they would disappear. And I explained how my theory is the Dianetics, whenever you see the word Dianetics, especially in Colombia, Pakistan, places American cults don't belong, it's money laundering. And so you could, if you had a Dianetics mission and you were a drug lord, you could have, you know, one of your associates run it, and you could put in $100,000 a week through there in advance payments, deliver the courses to non-existent people,
right?
Give the mission, give Scientology its VIG, its cut, right?
Yeah.
And then move the rest up through Curacao and then buy through your construction company on fake invoices, and then move it into Miami to buy condos. And that's why I said,
Miami.
Yeah, I would call that expansion.
Right.
Exactly. You got it. So, well, you know, I'm inclined to look at Scientology crime lies, legal matters, and they have a retail side. It's just like the mafia in the 70s had all these pizza parlors they were laundering money through. So there's a retail side where they deliver psychotherapeutic services and telepathic exorcism services on the retail side. But on the back end, when you get in the money club, I actually found Dianetics operating in Pakistan.
Wow.
And I found them in Cyprus. So all the money laundering havens, like they're way too much, and they operate under the name of Dianetics. And those are just indicia of money laundering. They're called sunny places for shady people.
Funny.
And so why would...
Do they have a real org there, office there? Do people come in for auditing or no?
No, what you do with SMI, Scientology Missions International, you pay them a fee, and then they let you use their signage, and you buy like a starter kit of Dianetics books and stuff. You
just never really franchise it.
And you just throw all of that Dianetics shit in the dumpster.
Right.
And all you need is a building with signage, and you're off. Then you can launder money, because SMI, Scientology, has deniability. Hey, we issued these guys a license. We don't know anything.
Right.
But they're not going to get the book by Farley Spink. That only stays here. So there's, you know, so I always look at the birthday event as, I was at the 2007 New Year's Eve event, Mitch.
Yeah.
And I didn't see you there, but I didn't know you at the time. Besides, I was just a drag act.
What year was that?
2007.
Yeah. Well,
New Year's Eve. Shrine
I would have been sitting
Auditorium.
in the front row with the big shots, so I don't know where the hell you would have been.
Well, you know what? I was posting at xenu.net and I was under the radar. So they sent me an invitation, so I took it, come to the event, and I wanted to like have the wholly immersive cult experience.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get into this it is a wholly immersive experience, a New Year's Eve event. It was like, I mean, I've been an intense Pentecostal growing up that way, faith healing, miracle deliverance service from demons. But this went way far beyond that. It was like, holy fuck, what have I got myself into? Am I going to escape and get back to my home planet? I mean, it was terrifying in one aspect, but it was also fascinating, you know, being a spiritual tourist that I am.
Yeah.
And it was like, no, I mean, I've done stuff just out of curiosity. Like when I was a kid growing up and there were ghosts, it's like, let's go to the haunted house. Oh, I'm up for that. Yeah. Or when I was a young man, let's go out to Joshua Tree and look for the UFOs. Oh yeah, I'm up for that. Because, you know, it's like, so going to a Scientology event, it was like, so if you ever get a chance to go to the Shrine event, or back in the day, I mean, Mitch, it was like, this was like an occultic, immersive, intense, electronic experience. Then Miscavige comes out, and then you got all the cameras sweeping around watching people on the boom.
Oh
and then he starts just shotgunning you with statistics.
Funny.
I mean, all these statistics
it's all made
move
up. They call it Scientology math. It's all invented.
Man, but it moves so fast you can't follow the statistics. and Miscavige is. So was this event the same? Was he talking as fast? I want to see some
let's check it.
video.
I actually wanted what's happening now, Shannon, because you might be interested in this as well. Is David is talking about Chicago, so I think that'll be fun to kind of listen to that whole thing.
That's Shannon's take.
I did finally pause it,
Okay.
but I will unpause it, and there we go.
Home of the Bulls, the Bears, and the best big city in the U.S. After this city famously burnt to the ground, they built it all over again. And when they needed clean water, they made their river run backwards. But beyond any of this city's past glories and engineering feats, there is something far more profound: our history. From a handful of briefly course graduates banding together to form a first group, to the formation of a full-fledged Church of Scientology, incorporated in 1974. And so this grand opening coincides with her 50th year, a celebration of a golden anniversary for Chicago. It all starts with your newly minted FEBC executives, including 9 class auditors and 10
Oh my
peers,
God, we can't listen to this.
epitomize the resolute spirit.
I will tell you that.
And who is in.
No, this part of it is just you cannot. He's
a lot of
talking about the org board, and you can't even listen to it.
Shannon needs a headache pill.
I do. I can't.
Yeah, listen, I was feeling your pain, Shannon.
Me too.
Yeah, I will say that he does not sound nearly as energetic as he did, let's say, back at that 2007.
That's kind of low key, doesn't he?
He sounds much lower. He sounds much lower.
Yeah.
Maybe he gave up the cocaine. Hey, Dodge.
What's up?
So that in that part, that's where he talks about that's where he starts talking about the org board, the great new org board.
Okay.
And it's like literally you cannot listen to it. You can't. It's so bad, and it lasts forever.
Those bustling downtown known as the Loop. And on Printers Row, the historic hub of the Midwest print industry,
you can't hear it. Hold on.
now stands the new Church of Scientology, Chicago.
New Church of Scientology,
Chicago dates back more than a century. While today, she's been lovingly brought back to life with the facade meticulously restored down to the reprinting of every brick. Hence, behold the revival of all her intricate detail to its original standard. From her Art Deco terracotta to her terrazzo exterior facing heavily trafficked Clark Street.
Okay.
Then there's her breathtaking interior.
All right, I'll stop it.
Yeah, it's so bad.
I won't trigger any PTSD.
Yeah.
That was interesting.
He doesn't talk in any detail about like the opening.
Pull it over, Zeno.
You know, that you and I.
Who's that guy with you?
Really? Yeah. I mean, I'm looking. I won't make you listen to it, but I'm watching. Alex was kind enough to subtitles, and it's and he's going on and on about the interior of it, stained glass windows, but he's not actually talking about like we had an awesome opening. Maybe because it wasn't awesome because you fucked it up for him, but.
We did. You can hear us in the background, even though they edited the shit out of it. You can still hear us.
Yeah. They can hear you guys in the background?
Yes.
That's awesome.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Lord knows I was screaming.
I know. I couldn't talk for a week at least afterwards. I had no voice.
Boy, it doesn't take much of Miscavige to drive you like stop it, please.
I know.
They could,
really
you know what?
Guys, it's hilarious.
That's like a form of torture. They could have used that in Guantanamo.
That's my.
I'm the only one.
It's worse than
that can tolerate his voice for 2 hours. So I'll do a later thing and do my own analysis and come back to you guys. You're like, this is cool. This is cool.
No, actually.
If
you want to listen to it, go ahead. I've got to take off soon anyway. The dog has to go out again. Doesn't yours?
Yeah, my dog is starting to protest as well.
Well, yeah, we've been on the stream for like 3 hours.
Do we have any viewers at all?
Well, the whole time we had at least like 100, give or take 60 to 100.
Oh my God, that's not very many.
No, but there'll be a lot of interest in this on the replay. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it's late at night, so I'm hoping, you know.
Yeah, Michelle and Reese, right? Take my money, make him stop talking. Please. You know, when I went to that event, Mitch, in 2007, I took about $400 or $500 in cash because I knew if I bought books, I could flee and escape. So I bought some books and made it past the regs. Like, you hold this pile of books, and they had booksellers like every 6 feet with stacks of whatever crap they were selling.
Oh my God.
But I bought mine right on the way out so that I could like have books and look like I'd already bought, and I escaped. It was like a big regathon. That evening I had to listen to Miscavige. You know what's embarrassing is they had white people rapping. The whole audience, like, so you had all these 60, 70-year-old white OTs rapping with the people on stage. It was like, come on, that's not even. So it was hard to get my mind around. But Mitch, what was really creepy, there were Sea Org members all around with clipboards watching if you were.
Oh yeah.
If you were doing your standing ovations.
Yeah, they were also making you fill out that survey. They were surveying you, which is another way of.
But what's with the big camera that just sweeps silently? You know, it's on a giant boom arm. There's a camera that just kept sweeping over the audience. Is that for crowd shots or compliance?
I don't know. I don't know. You mean during the event?
Yeah, during the event, this camera.
Yeah, that would be for crowd shots. Unfortunately, Rachel couldn't be here because she actually shot a lot of those events.
Yeah.
I'd love to get her back on later, and I actually will watch the whole thing and pick out little clips and ask you about it later on.
Yeah,
awesome.
To watch it with you guys, and then I realized anyone who could tolerate watching him for 2 hours uninterrupted. I was going to ask you a very silly question, Mitch, because you worked with David Miscavige, and Jeff mentions the rappers. Did he have any music that he liked? Did he have a favorite?
Yeah. No.
What do you like?
I'm trying to remember. He liked big noise.
Like into Phil Collins.
Yeah, no, but he was into like loud rock and roll. Like
real, that's interesting. So kind of like ACDC, like metal,
like pop. No, not like metal. More like pop.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah, much more like pop, like Ariana Grande, kind of Beyonce, kind of.
Oh my God!
Like all that stuff.
Yeah, and yeah, he's not going to listen to Drake because he's like, Drake's his lyrics are disgusting. I mean, they're great.
Interesting. So he'll find Drake's lyrics disgusting.
Oh, I'm sure he would. No, not privately. He wouldn't. No, not privately. He wouldn't. Privately, he'd be like pulling people into his office and turning it on full on his $250,000 stereo system, and then playing like "Baby Daddy." "Baby Daddy, open up your."
Spank me again.
Yeah. Exactly. Just some, and he'd be like, "Look at it. Listen to this shit. Listen to this shit." And then anyway.
Yeah.
To make a scene. That's fascinating. And so he liked modern
Right.
music then. He wasn't like 70s.
Oh no, I'm sure he likes some classic stuff too. I'm sure. I mean,
Right.
I didn't
There's a lot of
hang out
pop.
with. I hung out with him a little in the early days, but and I didn't. I rarely worked with him. I worked around him.
Right. Interesting.
Like I sent him stuff, and he
I'm
responded.
sure there are
and-
very few people who would actually talk to him about his favorite music or movies. Or
Yeah. I'm sure that there's some other
probably
people.
not a lot of people. Probably
Yeah.
count one hand.
Exactly.
Which is how.
Yeah, but you were talking. When you were talking about the money earlier that this guy is making.
Yeah.
I remember one of the last meetings I had with him at Scientology Media Productions, and he wears these just unbelievably expensive hand-tailored Italian suits. I mean, or made by a tailor in LA.
Navy blue and boring, but right, they're all
Yeah. No. He's all about navy blue, and that's because of that's because of the Alan Flusser book, The Clothes on the Man.
Huh.
If you know about him.
No.
Alan Flusser is a very noted guy because Oliver Stone hired him to do the clothing for Wall Street because he's the guy who knows so much about men's haberdashery that he could decode all the different levels of character on
how big your collar should be, the size.
What color your tie should be, and all that. So then somebody gave that book to Miscavige back in the 90s, and he adopted it as a Bible. And like when we had to put somebody in a suit, it was a freaking nightmare because it all had to be exactly for Alan Flusser, right? And but yeah, so it's like you want to go casual, you wear a New York Yankees ball cap. It's just all this ridiculous bullshit. But
funny.
Yeah, he was I'm trying to think of what's his name. The guy who was the head of design for the German guy who died. I can't think of it. Whatever. It doesn't matter.
Warren?
But the last time I saw him, he was wearing these bespoke cufflinks. I couldn't take my eyes off of them. I was literally like hypnotized by his cufflinks. They were about the size of a nickel. Which is way too big. A man's cufflink should never be that big. And they were platinum. They were not silver. They were, because you could tell the difference between polished platinum and silver. And they had
face.
Yeah, and they had signed, the S and double triangle Scientology logo in them, embossed in them, and then they were encrusted with diamonds.
Oh my God!
This was like Pope level shit, right? Like I was so like Pope level. Like this was like I was, except the Euro, some kind of Eurotrash version of it.
Yeah, it's like a Guido version. Yeah.
Yeah, the Guido version of the Pope. He's like, he's like the Pope of Scientology Media Productions. But I was just like, I kept trying to look away from his cufflinks, and I kept looking back, and I was like, when the leader of your quote unquote church starts wearing cufflinks like that, you got to get the hell out.
You might be in a cult. Yeah,
you might be in a cult. You got to get the hell out.
I have a running joke. I do my character E. Stuart Mills, Scientology lawyer. I don't know if you've seen him, but he has the key fob to eternity. And David Miscavige, you don't have that. Neither does Scientology. I have the key fob to eternity.
There you go.
And you can't have it. It's not yours. And put down that coffee, Dodge. Coffee's for closers. You too much.
Thank you.
Gary Glenn Ross, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
He might. Oh God, that was another thing. You just inspired me to ask one more question. Was David Miscavige's favorite movie either Wall Street or Glengarry Glen Ross? Like, did he like?
That's very funny. That's very funny. I don't know why you would pick those two. You mean as a kind of mental experiment,
right?
Well,
right.
Larry Glenn Ross was such a dense, whatever. I mean, I was never a fan of that film.
It was a lot, yeah.
I mean, there's three scenes. There's three scenes in the whole film that are really, really good. But then you have to sit through all of that drivel. It's just unbelievable. Wall Street was a great film. So yeah, Wall Street. But I would think it would more be a Tom Cruise film would be his favorite film.
Yeah.
Because he's really, 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 he's Tom's his boy. Like, they're
love.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about the scale of abuse. I just got to squeeze this in.
Sure.
Earlier, when I mentioned that, and you have Tom Cruise as one extreme, and then the people in the whole at the other extreme of the abuse scale. Think about the fact that Tom used to make films where he was considered for an Academy Award.
Yes, Magnolia.
Like, think about Magnolia, which was
20 years ago, 30 years ago now. Yeah.
And now what does he do now? He does franchises that makes the church.
Movies.
So yes, that makes the church rather Scientology cult a ton of money.
Right.
And the thing is, so on top of everything else, Miscavige is his career counselor. I mean, this is nobody wants to hear me say that Tom is like their most highest, high profile abuse victim, but he is. And at the same time, he has his own accountability.
Sure.
So I'm not going to let the guy off the hook. But
when you were there, everybody's going to ask you, Jeff, you might have some inside knowledge. When you were there, Mitch, any truth to in the closet rumors of Tom Cruise?
No.
Everybody says that. That's interesting.
He's totally heterosexual.
Well, no, Dodge, even in Andrew Morton, when he was writing his unauthorized book of Tom Cruise, Andrew Morton himself concluded there was nothing to it.
Fascinating.
I've
but
talked to
Mitch. Funny. It's still funny.
Yeah, no, it's funny.
It's
absolutely funny. It's absolutely funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's not exactly Mr. Family Values.
Mimi Rogers made some snarky remarks about him wanting to protect his instrument.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, she meant that he appeared to be, maybe asexual in their marriage, and he didn't,
I've wondered about that. I've actually wondered about that. I mean, I think Tom and Dave have a very kind of homoerotic relationship, like
racing
a couple
big
of
machines together.
Yeah, like a couple of high school wrestlers that
wearing leather jackets.
Exactly. Yeah. More interested in hanging out with each other than their girlfriends, kind of thing.
Well, Dave went on the honeymoon. When Tom married Katie, they went on a honeymoon on a yacht, and Dave attended the honeymoon, which is creepy AF.
That's funny.
Yes.
And like Scientology is always the third person in the marriage bed.
Yeah.
And so but literally to incarnate it, have Dave on board your yacht where you can't escape.
No thanks.
And I just thought no kidding. But I think they have a kind of a man crush. It may not have been consummated.
Sure. Right.
But I had a friend who said he was in close to it. He's fled, but he said there were some pictures that Price, Stephen Price, the chiropractor.
Yeah,
Mitch?
Stefan. Yeah, Stefan.
Yeah, he said that there were some dreamy pictures Stefan took of Dave in a meadow, and it was really that he actually got to see the album at Stefan's place. This is going back to 2006. Wow. Yeah, there was it was sort of really Dave, like you haven't seen him in an unguarded moment. And it was like,
you don't want to see him in an unguarded moment.
No, you don't.
Well, maybe no. I have a parody website called OT. It is great, and I had a softer side of David Miscavige with an album cover, with jazz. The softer side of David Miscavige, the side that people don't get to see. But I don't actually like Mitch. Is Dave always on? He's always Dave, right? I mean, that's always him. Does he ever No, he's not.
I hadn't seen him in a long time, not be Dave, but in the early days, I remember when the IRS thing happened.
Yeah.
In '93, I was up there the next day or the day after, and I was in his office, just he and I, and on the coffee table in front of, not his office, it was his living room where he lived. And on the coffee table was all the documents, all of the letters of, what do you call them? Letters of, from the IRS, letters of whatever.
Yeah.
All of them in binders, right? And he was just loose tie, drinking a bourbon, and we're just talking, and he's just kind of a regular guy. He was very young.
He could actually shoot the shit once in a while.
Yeah, but I think that all kind of ended because he became more and more paranoid, and he didn't trust anybody. He never did that with me again. Right. And then, then around 2011, 2012, when he actually flipped out in front of me, not at me, but he actually was one of my watershed moments where the cognitive dissonance was becoming too overwhelming.
Right.
But he was screaming at three. I've written about this and talked about it, but he was screaming at these three adult staff members, you know, 2 grown-ass men and a grown-ass woman. And he had forced them to sit down on the pavement in July, and the pavement at Gold, the sidewalks are black stain. And literally, if you stand in one place, you'll melt your tennis shoes. It's that hot. And he forced these guys to sit there while he was screaming at them and screaming, humiliating them. And right at dinner time, when all the staff had to walk by, and he kept this shit away, but this was, and I walk around the corner and I'm like, oh my God. If I'm watching him doing this, then everything I've heard is true. Because I was always like, whatever.
Yeah, right.
You know, Jeff Hawkins, who was a friend of mine, got punched in the face. I'm like, well, he probably did something to deserve it. I mean, I was that indoctrinated, right? But now I'm watching this and I'm thinking, you mother. And then he points at me and he's pointing to them and screaming at me that's why you don't have a Dianetics campaign. So he's like triangulating me into this trauma. Because he knows that my presence is amplifying it, because the Dianetics campaign had been my thing, and I'm not in the Sea Org, right? So I'm being made to be an amplifier for the trauma of these people, right? So yeah, I got some real special treatment at Gold. For those of you who think I had special treatment. So anyway, yeah, that was one of. Plus, I was like, I can't ever go in session again because, like, I was done with Scientology. I can't get auditing ever again because I'm going to have to talk about this. And if I talk about this, I'm going to be. I mean, I'd already had a truth rundown. I didn't want to go through that again. I'm one of the only. I think me and Leah are the only non-Sea Org members that I know of that had the truth rundown. Which is, I'm telling you, if North Korea had the truth rundown, they could turn people like that. Boom, boom.
Here's one last question I want to ask. Speaking of the truth rundown, how is Marty Rathman doing? What is
I wouldn't know. I mean, I've been such a long.
Right.
I have no idea. I mean, I'm sure he's doing fine. I heard he bought a bakery. I heard he bought a house. I'm sure he's doing great. Yeah, I'm sure he's doing great. I mean, I can tell you, I was at Scientology Media Productions when Dave walked in the room. We were in the conference room in the broadcast building, and he walked in. So this must have been like 2016, 2017. And Dave walked in and he said, we all stopped because it's Dave. And we all stood up because it's Dave. And he said in the weirdest kind of tone, he said, Marty's back.
Huh.
Like that's what he said. He said, Marty's back. Wow. And I knew when I heard that they'd paid him off, because I knew Marty was never going to come back.
Right. So they didn't force him to donate continuous money to get to the next OT levels or attend auditing or anything like that. They're just like, we'll pay you, we'll screw you if you don't do this. And
we're going to torture your life. We're going to make your life miserable.
Right.
And then his wife, it was her lawsuit, and she didn't want this lifestyle. So she's like, take the money, call the lawsuit off. I'm sure that's what happened. I mean, there was some rumor going around that the church, the church spec ops had video of Marty manhandling this foster kid that they were trying to adopt.
That's what I heard.
That's bullshit. That's bullshit. I don't believe that for a second.
Okay.
No, I think that's like, I think Scientology would. I think OSA would love for you to think that they're that powerful. They're not. They're right. They're a freaking Volkswagen full of clowns, basically. They hire. I mean, there's two levels of them. There's the clown car, and then there's a really devious level that only Dave deals with, and they're real dangerous characters, right? I mean, the two guys that were tailing his dad, they got busted for. They got busted for having like homemade silencers. They were just a couple of clowns being paid $10,000 a week to just look after his dad. So anyway, it's I kind of lost my train of thought there, but
Marty Rathman.
Marty. So I hated Marty. Marty was like, I was once invited to go work with the Squirrel Busters and go down to Texas and like torture him. And I'm like, fuck you. If I see that motherfucker, I'm going to kill him. You don't want me there. Because if I see him in person, I'm going to kill him, because it's a long story, but my former wife wanted a divorce. She had every reason to want to divorce me because I was not a good husband. I really wanted to try to save my marriage. And David, he assigned Marty to my wife, my former wife. And he devastated her. He yanked her up to Gold weekly for sec checks. We had a small child. It completely destroyed any chance that we would ever have of saving that marriage. Not that it was even salvageable, but this was like Dave was like, nah, let's do Mitch a favor, like handle his wife. It's like, anyway, whatever. So I had this whole history with Marty going back into the early 90s, where I had developed a real hatred, a real serious hatred for him.
Interesting. So Becky says, haven't seen Marty yet in Corpus Christi. Is that where Marty lives? He lives all the way down in Corpus Christi?
He was living in, I can't think of the name of it. It's near Corpus Christi.
Interesting. So he's away from any Scientology center.
Oh, totally. Yeah, he's not anywhere.
Corpus is.
Yeah, he's not anywhere. So
but he's also stopped auditing himself. He's not doing any of that.
Yeah, I think he finally stepped away from it. I think he's just given all that stuff up, I mean, he was doing that thing with where it was, what did Dave call it? Dave, you called it the Church of Marty.
No, Marty had a blog that
I know.
And he was
and people would go down there.
Price auditing too.
Yeah, people would go down there and get auditing from him.
Oh,
and he would say, pay me what you can. I mean, Marty had a lot of training. I mean, he was also known as a guy when he was in RTC who would sec check a guy, and if the guy wouldn't answer up, he'd stop the session, take the guy outside, punch him in the face.
He looks like that kind of guy.
Yeah, and then and he and Dave were like best friends. Like
I can see that.
Yeah, the first time that Marty blew, he ended up in New Orleans, and Dave went down there, tracked him down himself personally, and there was like a World Series or something going on in New Orleans, and Marty's like a baseball fanatic, and Dave showed up with like baseball tickets and like bromanced him for a weekend. Dave told me this whole story about how he got Marty back, and then he talked him into coming back, and then he sent him to Flag to work in the shop for like months, and he got all of his chiropractor, medical, got him all taken care of, then shipped him off the ship for a year to do like more chaining and chill out. I mean, these people, they become so fucking attached to each other. Like, just say goodbye. Just like
Miscavige view Marty as a friend when he was talking.
Oh yeah. I mean, look,
he made a mistake. Now he's back. He's my friend again. Whatever.
No, what he meant was it's weird, but Miscavige was torturing Marty to get him to cry uncle.
Right.
And between he and his wife, my instincts are telling me, they're like, screw it. We'll take the money. We want to live our life. I don't want anything to do with any of that anymore. They screwed their lawyers over, a whole bad scene, but he took the money. Then I heard this rumor about the kid and the blackmail, and I'm like, no, that's just bullshit. But because what Dave said, he said Marty's back, and then we're like, and he wants to talk. He wants to go on the record. And then he looked at me and he said, we're going to interview him. And then he said to me, Mitch, I need you to do the camera planning. What do you need to shoot him? I said,
that was you.
No, it wasn't me.
Oh,
it
okay.
No.
I've seen a lot of those. Yeah.
Yeah, no. And so then I said, well, I need to know where we're going to shoot him. He said, we'll get like whatever the closest luxury hotel is. Like we'll get a big suite, right? Like a 2-bedroom, 3, whatever. We'll get the honeymoon and then that's what we'll shoot it. So I want to know how many cameras you want, what kind of crew do you want. So I did all the planning, and then I got busted and sent back to Gold, and then they didn't shoot it for months. So I think I know who shot it. It's the same guy who shoots all the hate sites. He's a public Scientologist like me, who is just a filmmaker, but not a very good one. So, but because it was definitely shot by Gold, but
it'd be Randy Stiff.
Yeah, it would be Randy Stiff. Yeah, Randy.
Yes, Randy Stiff. Yeah, Marty had a lot of scores to settle. What was happening in the Money Craftman versus David Miscavige et al. Lawsuit was Marty was really close to piercing the corporate veils in that lawsuit, or that Ray Jeffrey. Marty was kind of running the lawsuit, and they were close to piercing the corporate veils and proving that the Church of Scientology was the alter ego of David Miscavige. Right. And that would have been the death of tax exemption.
Wait, this was before or after the IRS?
Oh, this was after. This was 2014.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this is when they're trying to.
You can't. Okay.
I'll tell you a story. And because Marty's talked shit about me, and he had some scores to settle in those videos, and I really hate him for it.
Well, settle.
He's a son of a bitch. That lawsuit got so close to taking down, to piercing the corporate veil. And look, Marty's a really smart guy.
Yeah, he is.
He's a really smart guy.
Well, but according to Miscavige, Marty's mother was institutionalized when she was pregnant with him and given shock therapy.
No. Wow.
Yeah, see, but these are the kinds of stories that Miscavige like to make up about people.
Then what happened to Dave's mom when she was pregnant with him?
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, one of the weirdest things is I was at this party. It was an indie party. People were indies back then. After they left.
Yeah, right.
And so a bunch of people, they want Marty to be the new Messiah. I saw this.
Interesting.
So I'm out front, and Marty I'm talking so some a young lady there who's there with Marty. He's auditing her, and I don't have anything on it. It's like, so Marty comes out, and it was just weird to watch all the Scientologists looking for him to be the new Hubbard, to be the new leader.
Wow, so this is like a whole movement to really not be an independent Scientologist and audit by myself, but audit with a whole new group.
No, this was no Dodge. You don't understand. They wanted to take over the church and install Marty as the leader.
I see. So make
a revolution.
No, this is this is very serious stuff, Dodge.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Not trivial. They wanted to start a real independent church, free of David Miscavige, who they thought had squirreled everything.
Right.
And Marty has I was over 100 people at this private house party, and they're looking at Marty. And I just left. I went out in the driveway of this big private house, beautiful place. And Marty comes out, and he just said, "I don't want to be the leader." And I quoted a verse to him. I said, "Let the dead bury the dead," and that's what Jesus said. To put it in context of the Bible, Jesus is the passage in the gospel. Jesus calls a young man to follow him and be his disciple. And the young man says, "Well, I have to first go bury my father." And Jesus said, "Let the dead bury the dead." So I quoted that to Marty, meaning, look, just let the dead bury the dead. And he got it. He quoted it on his blog. But I think the pressure on him, because like I said, I've seen a lot of sides of Marty. I don't know him. He's not a friend.
Right.
But I've been around him enough. I got an argument with him about wiretapping, which I knew was going on, and he said it ended when he left. So that was a disagreement we had in a parking lot one night. That was when he was shooting Louis Theroux film. But I think between the pressures of him wanting to be a Messiah, but when they got close to him piercing the corporate veil in the Monique Rathbun case, that would have been deadly to the church to get an alter ego finding. That's why Miscavige had hired the Chief Justice of the Texas Supreme Court, had just retired, went to a private practice.
Wow.
And that was, I believe, Wallace Jefferson. His brother Lamont was also an attorney for Miscavige. And I think that's the point at which, look, as a private investigator, one easy way to get money or cooperation is to pay people.
Sure, of course.
And everyone has a price.
Right. Interesting.
As they say. It's not true. Some people do not have a price. But generally, if your life's going to be a living hell, right. Look, the cartels put it this way: lead or gold.
Oh,
you take the money,
right?
And if you make your life a living hell, and you're going to have that living hell for the rest of your life, or you can take a big payday. Maybe you got to stab some people in the back, and you can get your get-evens. You can get your fuck yous into people you don't like.
Yeah.
No, because Mitch, listen, those films where Marty's saying "fuck you" to everyone he didn't like.
Yeah, no, so but the thing is also there's another part of Marty. This is psychopathy. The mother.
I was getting there too.
Oh,
I was getting there too.
Sorry.
I was getting there too. It's like Marty wanted to settle some scores because it was a big goddamn ego. And
he wanted to be back in the limelight. He wanted a spotlight again.
Not as being the Miscavige replacement, though. Not as being
no. He could only ever be a number 2, and he'll recall
guys,
conversation.
I have to go.
Yeah.
I gotta go take
I'll
the
let
dog
you go.
out.
We'll
Sorry.
end soon.
The dog
This
gotta go
last bit.
out.
Shannon, you're the best. Thank you. Follow Shannon.
Hey, Shannon.
Shannon,
I'm a fan. Thank you for everything you do. I'll sub and we'll keep an eye on you. Okay.
Please do.
Yeah, you got it. You got it.
Yeah, good meeting you, Shannon.
It was really a pleasure meeting you.
Yeah, you Shannon, too. Great meeting you.
Dodge.
And Shannon, I'll probably see you in person because I got to go to Chicago to cover the convention. So
yay!
I'll see you in person.
Will then. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll do some auditing as well. So
okay.
Two birds with one stone.
Yeah, I think I'm going to need to go soon as well.
I've got to take out pretty quick here.
We've been talking for 3.5 hours. So
yeah, I mean, come on, this has been great, guys, but it's just like
whatever. I was going to end soon, but Shannon will let you know. Jeff will let you finish, and then probably call it a day. That's interesting.
Right.
No, I'm just saying. Well, that's a topic for another conversation, and I hope that Marty enjoyed watching the LRH. The David Miscavige event. I'm sure that he had a private live stream into his house, right, Mitch? Private satellite feed.
I think his wife would have not allowed that.
Interesting.
Yeah,
she just does not.
She's the one that really ran that whole thing.
She wears the pants. Yeah.
Yeah, she wears the pants, man. She's Okay, guys, this has been incredible. Cool. We need to do it again soon.
This is a hell of a lot of fun, Mitch. Thank you, and Jeff, thank you, guys.
You're welcome. And I also want to thank everybody who watched and hung with us.
Yeah, thank you guys for the whole. We quite a few, and this is almost a 3.5 hour conversation.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Oh, no need to apologize. It was fascinating. And next time we'll start an earlier time because we started.
Let's do it. I'll tell you, I've sold a lot of books in Germany and France.
Cool. Okay,
they really like it if they like stuff that's around 2:00 our time because that's just after dinner. Just after dinner. Yeah, because it's just after dinner for them.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And they especially the Germans. They like to sit down with a big mug of beer and watch this.
Digest it
because they hate Scientology over there. I mean,
don't they ever? It's the only place it's illegal technically, right? Or
practically illegal. It's not illegal, but it's
right.
It's as close as you can get.
Yeah, it's a controlled substance in Germany.
Right.
Okay, well, with that, I think we can sign off.
Yes, this is a lot of fun. I'll have both of you on in the future.
Yeah, please.
And maybe I'll think of a single topic because you can be endlessly fascinating about 20 of them, which would take forever, but we'll do a tight 2 hours or something.
Okay, good.
But thank you guys. Mitch, again, tell everybody your YouTube as well as your book.
Well, it's Scientology: The Big Lie. It's is the name of my YouTube channel and the name of the book. If you go there, I've got a bunch of stuff and links, and you can donate to help me keep the channel alive and all that good kind of stuff. You can buy autographed copies of Scientology: The Big Lie at mitchbrisker.com, et cetera, et cetera.
Cool.
And Jeffrey?
ScientologyMoneyProject.com, my wife's channel on YouTube, Surviving Scientology.
Beautiful. Well, thank you guys. You're a wealth of knowledge. And I think all of this happening for me getting involved in Scientology, it was a blessing in disguise because I, followed you guys for,
Yeah, we watched how you got fired into it. We all watched it. We're like, oh man.
Right. But it's my dream. Yeah. But then it was a happy circumstance because I deeply was interested in it. And now I feel like I have my own personal conversations where I get to add, you guys are like celebrities to me in a lot of ways.
Yeah, but also you really turned it into something positive.
Thank you.
Which was great. It was really great. Sure. I think you're doing it.
Okay,
I got to go beat my dog.
Yeah, I got to
go. I got to walk mine. Dog says hello.
Nice.
Says hi.
Nice.
And
I'll see you guys later
today. Thank you. Thanks a million.
We'll talk soon, Jeffrey.
Okay. All right. Take care, guys.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thanks again.